another ho-hum three-point game for you.
That's what it sounded like right here on your home of the Blues 101 ESPN last night. I gotta say, an improved effort by your St. Louis Blues. Top line was buzzing. You get a power play goal. Guess what? Great goaltending. An impressive game overall by the Blues going up against an Edmonton Oilers team that has found their form. They're really good again. They're going to be a tough out when we get to the Western Conference playoffs. That being said, the results was basically the same. You get a point, yeah, but you find a way to lose it in the end. Alex, biggest change to me, you get ahead early, you're not chasing the game that you have been recently, and the top line showed up. When that happens, the Blues look like a pretty decent team. When it doesn't happen, you look like you did against Winnipeg. You look like you did against Detroit. So it's not hard to figure out what exactly this team is. It's kind of what they were at the beginning of the year again suddenly. If they get up early, you feel pretty good about the way that they're going to play late. If they get down early, it's going to be an ugly night.
Unless they get up early for an afternoon game, and then you don't feel good about those either, sir. Which has not worked for this team. I mean, that was, if you go through 3 games, Detroit, Winnipeg, Edmonton, you significantly improved the way that you played. And, you know, Robert Thomas said a post-game last night, you know, you definitely can't question our effort in this game, and I agree with him. You pushed Edmonton, you held McDavid in check at least at 5-on-5, and you found ways to force them into overtime, and you picked up a point. The problem is, it's what we've talked about. Like, it's just the little things with this Blues team right now. It's the little things of them shooting themselves in the foot, whether it's a late line change of guys getting off the ice not fast enough or inability to get the puck out of their own zone. It's costing the Blues games, which had, for a stretch there, their goaltender was saving them. But one thing that was very noticeable in that game last night, and I think it's something that all of us have noticed this season, and it's part of the retool, is the Blues lack finishers. And I know that sounds odd to say because you got a guy who scored almost 40 goals in Jordan Kyrou and Pavel Buchnevich, who's pushing 30, and Robert Thomas. But, man, you had 2 breakaways last night, 3 odd man rushes, whether it was 2-on-1 or 3-on-2s. And in those 5 scenarios, you did not get a shot on goal. The Robert Thomas breakaway, you didn't get a shot off. The Braden Shen breakaway, the shot went wide. You had a 2-on-1 with Kyrou and Buchnevich, and the pass went errant. The Blues definitely lack what Edmonton showcased in the game last night. When you get a breakaway, Winnipeg showcased it as well. When you get a breakaway, you pounce and you capitalize. And right now, the Blues are still searching for those goal scorers, specifically at 5-on-5. That's been the difference in the Winnipeg Jets game, and I think that was the difference in that one last night.
You know what else was the difference? Was the way that these lines are constructed. So one thing that I really like about the way that they construct the top line for Edmonton, they've got Zach Hyman on that line.
Yeah.
You know what he does? He parks his ass in front of the net, and he's just going to stand there, and he is
Jake
not
Neighbors.
moving.
Yep.
Dude, I loved Eddie O's breakdown last night on the broadcast. There was one moment, Alex, I know you were listening on the 101 side of things. T-Bone, I think you were watching the broadcast as well. There was one moment where the top line had them hemmed into their own zone. Robert Thomas has the puck. It's like over on the far circle. And he is looking back, and it was the Parayko shot. Parayko shoots it on net. He gets it back to Parayko, and he's like, man, that is a great play by Robert Thomas because he circled around and found a way to get the open ice. And if he was on a line that had anybody that goes to the net, what happens there is he gets it to Parayko. Parayko shoots it on net, and boom, perfect rebound opportunity there. Instead, Kyra's just kind of standing there over off to the side. Booch is just kind of standing there over off to the side. They have zero impact on the play whatsoever. And so you don't have anybody in front of the net. The puck goes the other direction, and now it's a breakaway opportunity for Edmonton. If you've got Jake Neighbors on that line, somebody's going to the front of the net. I don't know if it becomes a goal, but it at least becomes a scrum. It becomes a fight for the puck in front of the net. Who knows what happens from there? Maybe Neighbors does put that puck into the back of the net, the way that Zach Hyman did last night, by the way. I think that is something else that we need to start looking into. Is I understand why they do this, where they've got their 3 best players on one line together to try to get the best out of each of those 3. But, man, we've been calling for it all season long. At some point, you got to try it. Let's see what it looks like with Jake Neighbors on that line, man. He is one of the most consistent players. I know what I'm getting from him every single night on this hockey team. And he's the only guy on the team that profiles this way. Braden Shen's a fun player. I like him a lot. He's not the same dude this year. Maybe he's playing through stuff. I don't know. But he doesn't look like the same player that he once was. I can't expect the same thing out of anybody else. Maybe Oscar Sundqvist, but he's not as skilled as Jake Neighbors. There's one dude on this team that has a net front presence ability, that has the finishing touch that you're talking about, that can play with those top line guys. and it's Jake Neighbors. And at some point, I would love to see them go that route. I think at some point, starting like now, because you got a week left before the NHL trade deadline. Let's see if maybe that fixes some of the issues on that top line. I thought the top line played well overall last night.
I thought that was back-to-back games where they played well after what took place in the Detroit Red Wings game, but there's a difference in playing well and impacting the game, and I thought you saw what a top line impacts a game looks like and what a top line that plays well looks like. And if you look around the National Hockey League and you look at some of the best offensive lines, they have three things. They have a goal scorer, they have a playmaking centerman, and they have a guy who retrieves pucks. And I don't think the Blues have a guy who retrieves pucks. Not that I don't think. They don't have a guy who retrieves pucks. Both Pavel Buchnevich and Jordan Kyrou can be that goal scorer in terms of being at the right place at the right time. You saw it last night with Pavel Buchnevich right in front of the net. But you can't have two guys that are waiting for the playmaker to pass them the puck to score goals, because what that does is it's one and dones. You're in the zone, you circle, there's nobody open, you throw it up, shot misses the net, now you're coming back the other way. Where at least if you have a forechecking player, whether it is Jake Neighbors, I thought Zach Bolduc played well last night in terms of chasing after pucks.
I like him.
I do too. I think he's impressed in 3 games that I don't think he's surpassed 14 minutes in the 3 games that he's played. But if you don't have somebody who's going after to win those puck battles, well, you're not going to create any offense. You're going to be one and done.
Yeah, he had a bad moment last night where he turned the puck over in the offensive zone, I think it was. He just held on to it a little bit too long, and then it ends up going back the other way. But overall, I thought he played a pretty good game. And that's the kind of thing, like, I can live with that, dude. It's a young player trying to do a little too much. Teaching moment.
Right.
I have to imagine today they're going to be watching that video, and Bannister will tell him, hey, just get rid of it. Get rid of the puck. There's nothing that he's going to be able to do by circling around another time. Get rid of the puck. This is not your game. Get it to your defenseman. Live to fight another day. Boom. Teaching moment for him. I can live with that when it's Zach Bolduc making that mistake, as opposed to guys that are 30-plus years old making that exact same mistake. Yeah. So I'm willing to live with the growing pains because there's also some upside with him. You can see the shots there. He's got some speed. I've been impressed by his willingness to go to the net in a way that I didn't think that was the profile of player that we were talking about with him. I don't think defensively he's ever going to be anything that you're super excited about, but he tries.
That's the part that matters, though.
And that's all I care about.
Yeah.
Like, are you giving effort on that side? He seems to.
And that goes back to the Robert Thomas quote after that New York Islanders game where we talked about his leadership basically stating, hey, hard work pays off. And Jordan Kyrou worked hard in that game. The one thing you can't question about Zach Bolduc in the 3 games that he's played is his effort that he's going after pucks and he's working hard for him. He got himself, I think he had 3 shots on goal and 4 shot attempts last night. Yep. And that's a guy who played 11 minutes. And you were playing on a line with Kevin Hayes, who's been going through it right now. So you got to give him props in the circumstance. You hope he can be a game breaker. You hope Jimmy Snuggerud can be a game breaker. But between this trade deadline and the offseason, if Doug Armstrong's making moves, which I think he's going to be forced to, your number one goal should be going out there to find a game-breaking winger to play with Robert Thomas.
All right, speaking of Thomas, another good game by him last night. A goal, an assist, 2 points in that one. He's up to 20 goals on the season. He's up to 68 points on the season. He's a plus 13 on the ice this season on a team that has not been particularly good at 5-on-5 this year. If you're looking at his projected numbers for the 2024 season, he's on pace for 28 goals and 95 points this year.
Damn.
95 points.
Man, almost that 100.
To put that in context, the last Blues player to reach 95 points in a season was Brett Hull 30 years ago, dude.
I heard he was pretty good.
30 years since the last 95-point player for the St. Louis Blues. The last guy to do it at Thomas's age, though, was Doug Gilmour in 1987.
Hot damn.
This is before I was born, man. We're talking about almost 40 years ago you have seen a player do what Robert Thomas is on pace to do this season. Here is the list. I'm going to go down it really quickly for you, Alex, because I think people want to hear these names of players at Robert Thomas's age to put up this kind of point production and be at least a plus 10 on the ice. So you're a net positive, right? Not just racking up a bunch of points on a terrible team or your line's not producing defensively. Like, you're on the ice and it's a net positive for your team. Guys to do this. 95 points, Robert Thomas's age, plus 10 or better. Jack Hughes, Elias Pettersson, Jason Robertson, Kirill Kaprizov, Mitch Marner, Austin Matthews, Matthew Tkachuk, Connor McDavid, David Pastrnak, Nathan McKinnon, Nikita Kucherov, Alex Ovechkin, Sidney Crosby, Nicholas Backstrom, Evgeny Malkin. That is the entire list in the last 20 years. It is officially time to crown Robert Thomas for what he is, which is a superstar in the NHL. We are no longer talking about a good player. Ryan Whitney talked about it last night. He tweeted it out. He said, people do not talk enough about Robert Thomas. This guy is the most underrated player right now in the NHL because he hasn't been on a good team the last 2 years as he's had this kind of development. Robert Thomas has made the leap, dude. The thing that we're hoping to see this year from Nolan Gorman or Jordan Walker or Mason Wynn, that is what we are witnessing right now with Robert Thomas. He has arrived, and it is really the utmost importance, and we heard this from Doug Armstrong when we talked to him. They have got to get him that top line winger that can get the absolute pinnacle of whatever Robert Thomas can be, because we are seeing a guy coming into form at the prime of his career at the age of 24 years old. Whatever is next is a 100-point player. Yeah, that's what we're witnessing right now. Is a guy that's going to be a 100-point player for the Blues.
And that's not even the prime of his career, 24. I mean, we're talking 2-3 years before you actually hit like the peak Robert Thomas age, 26, 27. And I mean, this goes back to what Craig Berube had told us that, yeah, this is a superstar. And I'm so glad you said superstar because he surpassed that star conversation. You went from a player last year that we were questioning what he was to in a season being a superstar. And I always like to look at, especially with centerman, even strength play. And if you look at his goal differential at even strength in terms of being on the ice for and against, he's better than Kirill Kaprizov, he's better than Mark Scheifele, better than Dylan Larkin, better than Joel Eriksson-Ek, Matt Barzal, Nugent Hopkins, Chris Kreider, Claude Giroux, Brady Tkachuk. Like, these are all guys that last year you were saying Blues need to get that guy. Well, you've got him, and it's not just a 100-point player. It's a 100-point player that has Selke Trophy aspirations. That is about as well-rounded of a player as you can ask. That is what you desperately need if you want to get out of a retool.
I was skeptical, man. I last year was talking about how I wasn't sure they were going to be able to get him to the point that they wanted to see, especially after Ryan O'Reilly was traded. He had some real growing pains. That ended up working out for him. And it has worked out for the Blues thus far. I know it has not been the season that many had hoped for. Recently, the performances all around have been up and down in nature. But Robert Thomas is that dude. Yeah. And he is finding his game on the ice. I think he's rounding into form off of the ice. Really impressive what we have seen from him, despite what the team has been around him at times so far this year. We'll talk about that a little bit more with Joey Vitale, the Blues analyst for both Bally Sports Midwest and 101 ESPN, as he joins us coming up in 15 minutes. You guys can always get involved in the show. 314-399-9646 is the Your Comfort Service text line, and the YouTube chat is off and running in the graveyard, youtube.com/101ESPN STL. Those studio cams are powered by the Air Alliance team. Coming up next, who are the Cardinals that are entering a pivotal season in 2024? I think it was that for Jordan Kyrou this year for the Blues. Who would that apply to for the Cardinals this upcoming season? We'll tell you our answers to that next year on 101 ESPN. We'll get to the Cardinal that's entering a pivotal season here in just a moment. We were just talking off the air about the movies, when the last time we went was. I'm planning on going to see Dune 2 next week. Alex, you used to go to the movies all the time.
I used to go to the movies probably once a week, if not twice a week. There was a stretch where my dad and I would probably go every single Wednesday together.
What was the last movie that you saw in the theater?
I don't know if I could tell you what it was. It was pre-COVID.
Is that more kids related, or is it more just not?
No, it's
having interest in going.
We just don't have any interest in going. Yeah. Like every time my wife and I were like, "Hey, what should we do tonight?" Like when we were engaged and we were originally married, it was always, "Let's go to the movies. Let's go see something." And now it's like, no, we'll just watch something at home. Yeah. There's just nothing that's piqued our interest.
Draw for me. Like Dune, I think will be a better experience by going to see it in the theaters as opposed to watching it at home. There aren't a lot of movies that I feel that way about, though, now.
Mine will be Deadpool 3.
Sure.
I've already stated, and I've told my wife she's not going with me, surprise, surprise. But that will be the first movie. Will you, buddy? Thank you. That'll be the first movie I go see in theaters since pre-COVID.
I think there are some Marvel movies that feel that way, where it's like it's such an event that you kind of...
It might have been Endgame, honestly. That might have been the last time I saw a movie.
Do you still go, T-Bone?
I go every now and then. Like, I think the last two movies I've seen in theater were Oppenheimer and then Killers of the Flower Moon.
I still have not seen Oppenheimer.
I haven't.
Oppenheimer's really good.
I don't have 3.5 hours to dedicate to Oppenheimer.
Oppenheimer's not as long.
I saw Barbie, but didn't see Oppenheimer, which says a lot about me, honestly. I was pulled into that by my wife.
I watched Barbie at home, and I was like, woof.
I gotta say, I thought it was pretty good. Also says a lot about me. All right, so which Cardinal is entering a pivotal season in the year 2024? I'm entering a pivotal moment right now in my...
Yes, you are.
My adult life.
Should I just turn your mic off?
Save you. Alex, for you, who do you think is the Cardinals player that it's a crossroads type of a season this year?
For me, and I know you guys are going to say some of them that I agree with, but I think Ryan Helsley's at a pivotal crossroad. I mean, you're 28 years old. They did arbitration with him. You didn't sign him to a contract extension. There were rumors of him getting traded in the offseason. 2 years ago, we all saw a guy that was a clear-cut, pivotal closer for this Cardinals team. Cy Young conversation, although he was 12th votes, was an all-star. He was your go-to guy. But that was 2 years ago. Last year, he was injured. You didn't know if he was going to be available for you. 3 years prior to that, he wasn't a guy that looked like a closer. So to me, at 28, 29 years old, this is Ryan Helsley's year to say, I'm the closer for this Cardinals team, and I deserve a contract extension. And if he's not that closer, which is why I think it's so pivotal, they don't have a closer on this team. They got guys who maybe could do it for a tiny stretch, but you don't have a guy that can carry you through the season or in the postseason as a closer. So Helsley's mine.
Yeah, and I think some of the argument against Helsley is kind of the argument I'm going to have for two guys here in the position group is health.
You get one.
I get one?
Yeah, you get one.
Come on.
Not everybody gets one. You know the rules. It's Spider-Man.
I know. And then BK's going to list off like three.
I'm not. I've got two down because you get one.
See, he's got two.
Well, of course he does.
I would say the most pivotal one for me, and I think it's the most obvious since I'm limited to one, I would go with Dylan Carlson. Carlson's at a pivotal year.
You two cheated. You shared each other's.
Dylan Carlson is a guy that is going to be competing for the center field job right now. But I think he goes from a potential, like, right now, I think he's a fourth outfielder. But if he ends up hitting his ceiling, he's a still starting caliber outfielder. Switch hitter. If he improves from the left side of the plate, he hits lefties well. If he can just hit righties at, like, league average, you're talking about a solid everyday outfielder that can hit, like, 8th, 9th in an order. The problem for Dylan Carlson is, like, if he has another bad year, there's a chance the Cardinals are selling him like the Tyler O'Neill package where they're like looking for a shot-in-the-dark reliever. So I think Carlson is at the most pivotal spot in his career, and I think he's the one that has the most to prove this spring training. It is a guy that can either go from, hey, he can be a starting caliber guy, to he's going to be traded away for nothing.
Mine is Nolan Arenado.
It's a good one. I thought about that.
And it's not because I think he's like going to enter the season and finish the year not being a starting third baseman for the Cardinals or anything, but
that'd be bold.
It honestly, for sure, it has less to do with his performance and more to do with the Cardinals. Guys, if the Cardinals aren't good this year, I don't think Arenado or Goldie are back next season. Like, I think that's what's at stake for the Cardinals in 2024 is if this team underwhelms, Goldie's probably traded at the deadline because he's not going to be re-signed long-term. And I think Nolan Arenado is traded in the offseason. And next year you go into the season with Nolan Gorman at second, Nolan Gorman at third, Brendan Donovan or Tommy Edman at second base, Victor Scott in center field, and you just go full-on youth movement. I mean, it might be a situation where you've got Brendan Donovan at first, Tommy Edman at second, Mason Wynn at short, Nolan Gorman at third, and then in center you've got Victor Scott with Nootbaar and Jordan Walker.
Man, that can't be a good feel for Cardinals fans. As like exciting as those guys are, if you go that far into a youth movement,
it's a retool. It's a full-on retool.
Yeah, and you're like at your retool borderline rebuild to where like the talent's there.
I think that is the start of. Like,
you're where the Blues were 2 years ago when you do that.
Oh, I don't agree. I think teams rebuild to get to where the Cardinals could be next year, which is where you have all of this young talent that has emerged and has arrived at the big league level. Like, you are where the Reds were last year. Next year would be that for the Cardinals, where you've got a bunch of young talent that has emerged at the big league level, and you're hoping it works. There is no guarantee that it does. Like, a lot of those guys might be put into positions where it's a step too high. But this is why it's such a pivotal year for the Cardinals, and specifically as a trickle-down effect, Nolan Arenado. If that guy and this team do not perform to expectations, I don't think he's back next year. I think he's a Dodger in 2025. And that would suck because you traded for him to be a potential face of the franchise piece after Yadier Molina and Adam Wainwright retire. Well, now we're here. And he can be that guy still. If the Cardinals are really good this year, exceed all of our expectations, go on a little bit of a playoff run, man, that dude can still be something special. He can still be the guy that Alex had like a 7-week celebration about him being traded here to St. Louis. And all of us talking about how it was the guy that was, man, if they could just get Nolan Arenado. And they got him. And now he's here, and he's been mostly pretty good. I would say 2 out of the 3 years, though, have been disappointing. But the one great season, hot damn, was it good. You got to have that again this year. And you got to have a team that's good. And if you do, he can be a face of the franchise piece for you. But if you don't, I don't think he's a Cardinal in 2025. I think that's what's at stake for him, which is as pivotal of a season as you could possibly ask for.
I agree with that, and I'll go even bolder and say, like, if this team is underperforming and out of a playoff spot and looking like they're not a team, I wonder if he gets traded at the deadline. I wonder if they start that retool faster and say, we're moving on from Arenado. I'm sure he's going to have a say in it also if you don't look like a team that's pushing for a playoff spot. And I think they're going to start that faster because I believe the Cardinals view it the same as BK does. I don't know if we have these guys beyond this season. We want them. Paul Goldschmidt's very evident. Nolan Arenado, you want to keep that type of player. But I wonder if the Cardinals also view this as like, well, they didn't do what we expected them to do when they were here. They weren't the guys that took us to the next level, whether it's the regular season or postseason. They didn't do it. And you can argue it was a short sample size as much as you want, but that short sample size, those are the 2 guys you're banking on, and they didn't perform. And the Cardinals were probably looking at it. I would imagine it goes into the saying that they had in the offseason of like, we're going to wait this out.
Oh.
Well, that's true. They did do that. We're going to wait this out with Paul Goldschmidt.
That was also for Arenado, by the way.
Yeah.
Arenado was the one that was asking for that. So, hey, man, you've got everything you wanted.
You know what this feels like? This feels like what Doug Armstrong did with Craig Berube in the offseason, where he said, you hire your defensive coach. Because everything else is like, we're not sure about. Go hire the guy you want. I wonder if the Cardinals looked at Arenado and said, sure, let's get the guys you want to make you better. Because if it's not there, we're moving on.
Yeah. And get the team better, right?
Yeah.
Like you think what we are missing is veteran leadership. You think what we're missing is guys that can go deep into baseball games. Cool. We're going to get all of that for you.
Oof.
And if it works, we're in this thing together, baby. And if it doesn't work, we're all going to be going our separate ways because Ollie's getting fired, Mo is probably gone, and Nolan Arenado is probably one of the first pieces shipped off in the offseason.
Man, doesn't that sound like the start of a rebuild?
I mean, it feels that way. I think that the Cardinals would actually be in a better situation than the vast majority of baseball teams to be in that spot. But yeah, it's probably like an 80 to 85 win team next year if you go that route. And you are lacking severely.
Probably that already, right?
I'm picking pitching. Up good vibrations.
He's Alex. That's T-Bone. I'm VK. Joey Vitale next year on 101 ESPN.
Tara Hendrickson here with a Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. The St. Louis Blues fell to the Oilers last night 3-2 in overtime, and they'll be back in action on Saturday when they host the Minnesota Wild. We'll have pregame coverage starting at 4 o'clock with Alex Ferrario and Joey Vitale, and then Joey will join Chris Kerber for Puck Drop at 5. This Sports Center update is driven by Johnny Londoff. Find your road shop 24/7 at londoff.com, londoffautoPlex.com. Are you kidding me?
Blues lose 3-2 last night in overtime out in Edmonton, but overall, pretty decent performance by the Blues. Top line looked great. Colton Parayko with a good night. Good night by Jordan Binnington as well. We go out to the 101 ESPN hotline right now to talk it over with Joey Vitale. He's the Blues analyst for both Bally Sports Midwest and 101 ESPN, doing a great job right now during this road trip, pre, post, and intermission on Bally. Joe, appreciate the time as always, my man. How you doing today?
Joey, come back from Bally's.
Hey, love it, guys. Hey, guys, how you doing? Doing great. I was outside pruning my hydrangeas. I never thought I'd say that, but my wife said our hydrangeas need some pruning, so I had to look up on YouTube what that even means, and I was outside pruning some hydrangeas. And sorry if I'm a little late on the call.
Joe, you might be the best dad and husband in the world if you are spending your off day pruning hydrangeas.
Yeah, I don't really understand why they don't just grow like. Why are we interfering with nature? But apparently, you got to cut them down to the second knuckle, an inch above the second knuckle. It's funny feeling my wife just wants me to get out of the house.
That makes a lot of sense. That's like when my wife
just go chop some flowers here. Just do this. This is what you're supposed to do, and just go spend an hour. And it takes forever because it's like 1,000 flowers per bush.
That's like when Katie just occasionally is like, hey, we haven't picked up dog poop in a while, which means like get outside and pick up dog poop. Cool. Okay, I'll go outside for 30 minutes.
And my wife's version is, hey, we need to go to Target, which is a 4-hour excursion.
Oh, yeah. Nothing will make you feel like a Mr. Mom, like going to Target right after drop-off. I literally run into like 100 Kirkwood moms if I'm running an errand for my wife. We have these gumball trees that literally shed like a million gazillion balls this time of the year. And I told my wife, I'm like, hey, there's like a spray that, you don't need to do this anymore. But she keeps saying, no, it might hurt the tree.
Sure.
I keep coming back to one thing. It's like, I think she just wants me outside for 3 days straight picking up balls.
Hey, Joe, final question, non-hockey related that I got to ask you because we were talking about it before the show. We figured, hey, there's nobody better to ask this question than Joey Vitale. How often do you change your sheets? How often do you wash them?
I had a conversation with my wife about this yesterday.
That's amazing.
Are you listening in on our bedroom conversation?
We've bugged your house, Joe.
Occasionally, Joe. Don't worry about it. It's going to be fine.
Okay. I just talked to her about this yesterday. Flu went around my family this week, so my wife, first of all, I was the only one that didn't get sick, knock on wood.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, so we'll see how that goes. And I'm talking to her, and she's literally like bent over, changing sheets, sicker than a dog. And I looked at her, I was like, you know what's funny about you and me? And she's like, what? I go, if I didn't have you and I was just living in this house solo, I don't know if I would ever wash the sheets. To answer your question, BK, I would never wash my sheets unless there was like a blood stain on there or like some sort of visual, like that doesn't belong there. I should wash these. Aside from that, I don't think, like in college, before I met my wife, I don't think I ever changed my sheets. And she is like a once a week sheet changer. And I don't understand it because it is like pulling teeth, taking the sheets off. You got to wash them. They're always getting stuck in the dryer, and then they're finally dry. And then the agony of having to like, why would anyone want to put a king size bed sheet on a bed where you got to like jump on the bed and pull the corners? It's just complete agony to me.
And the timing's never right, Joe. I get home at like 3 o'clock, and so you almost immediately have to put it into the wash to have it ready to go by the time you're going to bed, and then you got to have the kids that you're dealing. Like, it's
how many pairs of sheets do you guys own?
It's this whole thing. I got one. I got one.
It's terrible. And like 2 weeks ago on a pregame nap day, I come home from the rink in the morning. I'm like, hey, I'm going to go lay down for the game tonight. She's like, sure. And then she goes, oh man, there's no sheets. They're in the washer. I go, oh, it's okay. I laid on the mattress. I don't care.
Oh, yeah.
I do not care. She's like, you literally laid on the mattress? I'm like, yeah, that's what I am. I'm a man, and I lay on the mattresses, and that's completely fine. So, to answer your question, we balance each other out. I would never do it. She's freaky about it. She'll do it once a week.
Okay, so that's Alex said every 4 to 5 days. T-Bone said every couple of weeks. I think I'm once a month. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. It probably speaks to my own personal issues that I've got going on here, but it's good to know that we're all on the same page here.
It's like not.
Yeah, no, I mean, same page for sure. And my kids, luckily, they take after me, thank God, in a lot of ways. My son, Bodie, I told him about 2 months ago. He's like, Dad, it's so annoying getting ready in the morning. I can never find my belt. They go to a Catholic school, so they have to wear the uniform, and they only have 3 pairs of pants. I'm like, Bodie, just lay out your clothes the night before, and that didn't work. And I said, listen, what I did in high school, and this is no joke at CBC, at one point, I actually slept in my collared shirt and khaki pants, and I literally rolled out of bed and just hopped in the car. I mean, and now every night to bed, he's got his collared shirt on, his pants, his socks, and my wife is just beyond herself with this. Like, she's like, this cannot happen. I'm like, let this kid go. He's fine. It's time management. He's doing just fine.
Joe,
Joe, you figured out dadding, my man. You have figured out dadding.
100%.
I was going right.
Yeah. All right, let's talk a little bit about the Blues. An impressive effort last night. Listen, Edmonton's really good. They lose in overtime. You get a point out of that game. If the context of everything that we're talking about here wasn't what the last 6 had been prior to that, we probably feel pretty good coming off of that one. I did want to ask you about one of the positives, which is Robert Thomas. He's now on pace this year, Joe, to finish with 95 points on the season. He's on pace to finish with a plus 18 rating. We said earlier, this guy has reached officially superstardom status for us. What have you seen from Robert Thomas that has stood out to you most this season, Joe?
Well, I mean, look at that shot and goal last night, BK. You know, that's a shot he doesn't take 2 years ago or even last year. And I think the biggest – well, I mean, let's talk just production, you know, because there's 2 trains of thought here. I mean, because he's developed terrifically this year in both. One is, of course, on ice and the other one's off ice. But from an on-ice production standpoint – of a plus-minus, driving the first line, defending against other teams' tops, finding the best points he's ever had in his career. That in itself, to me, is something that Alex and I touched on a little bit on the pregame show here and there. But last summer, they wanted him to work on his shot. And they said, one thing you have to do differently this year is you have to start shooting the puck. It's not a selfish thing. I know you're a passer. I know that juniors and even your first few years in the league, you're a pass-first player. That's just who you are. That's fine. We don't want to take that away from you, but you have to start establishing that shot first. And what that means is, and we're starting to see how since he has done that, not only his goals have gone up, but his assists have gone up. And that's what happens when you're a shot first. Why? Because when a team is defending you, you know, if you're, let's say you're a Jonathan Huberdeau. Jonathan Huberdeau just passes the puck. I don't think I've ever seen Jonathan Huberdeau shoot the puck, ever. Okay, so that's what he does, which is fine. But the issue becomes is when I'm defending against Jonathan Huberdeau, and I remember those days, I'm thinking, here he comes. He's going to pass the puck. I got to look to my left. I got to look to my right because he's going to dish this puck. So you're not really focused on his shot. Now, the issue becomes is that now you're worried about the players around him, and then Jonathan Huberdeau is kind of, tough on time. Same thing with Robert Thomas. When players and defenders were defending him in his first 4 seasons, they were thinking this kid's going to pass it up. He's going to come in the offensive zone. I mean, every single time he came in the offensive zone, he buttoned up and he looked to make a pass. Okay? Now he's different. Now he's a shot-first guy. Now he's coming in the O-zone, and he may surprise you throwing at the net. That goal last night on the power play, again, he's at the blue line, he's dragging in, and he just rips it top corner. So now the issue is for opposing players is this kid can shoot it. He could pass it. I don't know what he's going to do. In some ways, it's like a Connor McDavid. Is he going to pass? Is he going to shoot? There's a million things Connor McDavid can do with the puck, and that's what makes him so hard to defend against. And Robert Thomas, of course, I'm not going to put him in that class, but at the same time, with his great shot, you have to defend the shot, but also he can pass. So then there becomes an unpredictability about him, and that's why when he's become shot first, there's the unpredictability. The opposing team has to give him more space, And with that more space, he can either A, shoot it, or he can find more passing lanes to pass it. So that's where you're seeing his offensive numbers continue to climb.
And on that topic, Joe, one thing that was noticeable for me last night in that game is the Blues need somebody who can break a game wide open with their shot. And I mean, you had 3 odd man rushes, 2 breakaways last night, and the Blues didn't even get shots off. It feels like they're still searching for that guy who every time the puck's on his stick, you're wondering if he's going to score a goal.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I mean, you need a shooter's mind that. You know, you have to. I mean, you have to, especially in tight games like that, or maybe a response game like that. You know, coming off a tough Winnipeg game, back-to-back, let's shoot right away. Let's get pucks to the net. That's the idea, getting off to a good start, and the Blues did that. I mean, they scored 2 goals in the first few minutes. All of a sudden, bang, bang, it was in the back of the net. You thought that game was going to be 8-0. But that's how you have to go. And, you know, you look at Robert Thomas's game, Alex and BK, there's one thing about his game, to me, that reminds me so much of Connor McDavid. And it's a small thing, and I talked to Shane Doan about this, and Alex and I, we touched on it at the Enterprise Center, but it's his ability to catch pucks. I mean, Connor McDavid, people talk about his speed, his shot, his vision, his crossovers all the time. And same with Robert Thomas, his shot, his passing, he can skate, he can puck protect, he can win faceoffs. But, you know, one skill that both those players, and I watched the game last night, they do so well, and you don't even recognize it if you're not looking for it. It's just they catch passes. They catch passes in motion, and they're already working on the next move. And this is something that when you look at the NHL and the typical player will catch a pass, sometimes it takes a split second for them to actually corral it before they make their first move or they pick their head up. You know, Connor McDavid and Robert Thomas, when a pass comes to them, they are receiving it. They're receiving it in motion, and it's already stuck to their stick when they make that first move. So it's just that split second. It makes all the difference in the world. I talked to Shane, and, of course, he's working with Austin Matthews, who's part of the Toronto Maple Leafs organization, and he watches Austin Matthews train. One thing he does very differently, which, of course, you see how it translates to his game, whenever he's doing a skill drill in practice and someone passes him the puck right before, like, a cone, for example, he doesn't pass it to Austin Matthews 2 feet before the cone. Austin Matthews takes off, and he waits for that pass. That pass comes about a half a foot before that first cone. So what does that do? For the McDavids and the Matthews and the Robert Thomases, it forces them to catch the puck, and they don't have a ton of time to make that first move. And that's what they do so well. And when you're doing that very well, of course, anticipation of the game comes very naturally. Lanes start to open up, and then, of course, you can get your shot off a lot quicker.
It almost sounds like a quarterback that throws to a spot as opposed to throwing to where he sees the receiver at a certain place. It's a really interesting perspective there, Joe. Hey, we appreciate the time as always, man. Really enjoy watching you on Valley Sports Midwest this week on the pre-post intermission. Looking forward to seeing you back on the broadcast with Alex Ferrario as well for pre and post, and then certainly with Curbs during the call too. We always enjoy our Thursday conversations. Never know where they're going to go. You're the best, Joe.
Hey, appreciate you boys as always. I see my wife glaring at me from the window, and I need to get back to
Get back to those hydrangeas.
Got to go now. See ya.
See ya. That's Joey Vitale, one of the best in the business. Always enjoy our conversations with him.
Got to get back to picking up those balls outside.
That's right.
Like he said.
Well, I think today is pruning.
Yeah, the other day was picking up the balls.
That's right.
That makes sense. You know, one thing that he said at the end, talking about the passing ability and how you can receive those pucks, that is one thing also very noticeable in these last 3 games. I don't know if you've noticed it, BK. The passing is just off. Every single time. You're behind the player. You're in their skates. You're in front of them to where it's out of reach. If you've got the passing ability that Robert Thomas has, you've got to have somebody on that line that can receive the puck at the same skill set as he does.
It's the entire team, though.
It is the entire team.
This has been an issue for 2.5 years.
But when you're a forechecking team, the passing isn't as necessary because you can win the puck battles.
That's right.
It's when you play like a rush team like that top line does, and the passing's not crisp.
It's a weird thing with this team, though, because there are some games where it looks fine.
Yeah.
Passing looks crisp, and you can kind of tell early on if that's going to be the case or not. Mm-hmm. And there's other games where it feels like everything is a battle, where the puck is just a little bit off for them. And when you watch the opposition, it's like, man, everything seems so much easier for them to just be able to get the puck where they want it to go. I don't know why that is. Maybe it's a lack of skill through the middle six, especially for the Blues lineup right now. but it's definitely something that is noticeable as I'm watching these games right now. Blues back in action coming up this weekend against the Minnesota Wild. Have tonight off, a much-needed night off after a 2 back-to-back games playing against some really difficult teams right now in this stretch. They've got 4 games remaining prior to this year's NHL trade deadline. He's Alex. That's T-Bone on BK. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. We've got questions and answers coming up next. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers, or the Graveyard is the YouTube chat over at youtube.com/101ESPN-STL. You can get your comments in there as well. Let's start with this, Alex, from the 314. Do you believe that Doug Armstrong will wait until the day of the deadline to make any of the decisions officially on what he's going to do with the trades?
Absolutely. Because what's not taking place with his available players is teams coming with the biggest offer first. And what I mean by that is Ryan O'Reilly, Ivan Barbashev, and Vladimir Tarasenko. Teams knew what it was going to cost to get those players, and they tried to give it to him before he dealt them elsewhere. And so when Doug got the best offer, he said, sure, let's do this. That's not happening with these guys. Now, teams are calling and saying, hey, Doug, we'll give you a 7th-round pick for Marco Scandella. Or, hey, Doug, we'll give you some dude that's never played in the NHL for Kasperi Kapanen. Or, hey, Doug, we'll give you a 1st-rounder for Pavel Buchnevich. Not going to give you for that. You want to make it a good offer. And so, yeah, he's going to wait till the deadline to see what people offer. And if nobody gives him what he wants, you hold it to the offseason.
It's kind of where I am. I think if you're Army, last year it made sense. Look at all the returns that Doug Armstrong got and all the trades that he pulled before the deadline. They all kind of made sense. It wasn't one of those where it's like, oh, yeah, I don't know why he took that. He reached. I think he felt like he had the best offer. I think he's going to do exactly that again. And I think the player that he's going to be doing that for is Booch. If the Tanev trade was any idea of what the market looks like, he's going to wait until there's a bidding war for Buchnevich, and then if he wants to trade him, see if there's the ideal package that he's looking for.
I don't know that the Blues have guys that are going to be at the top of anybody's list right now, other than Kyrou and Buchnevich. And those are just more complicated deals in general to get done because of the money, because of the term. So those probably take some time to work through all of the different issues that could arise within those deals. And just a significant package will have to come back. So whether that's going through prospects, medicals, all of these different things, it just becomes more difficult. So I don't think they're going to do anything until deadline day either. I'd be a little surprised if they do anything of significance before then. From the 618, T-Bone, how are you feeling about your Illini? Good win last night, but gave up 97 points to Minnesota.
That seems like a team that's going to choke in the first round.
In their last 5 games, they have given up, or 4 games, 80, 90, 85, and 97 points. Not what you want.
No.
So what you're saying is Brad Underwood has lost his locker room.
I'm getting concerned, guys, because offensively they are great. Offensively they have legitimate
They're fun
weapons.
as hell to watch.
Terrence Shannon, Slasher, Domask, the mid-range game that's disappeared from basketball. Goody, a decent three-point shooter along with Shannon. They have all these weapons. Hawkins been fantastic, arguably a Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year candidate. But yet somehow this defense has really gone through it. Now, last night, I don't think they were as bad as they were the 3 previous games. Minnesota hit some incredibly tough shots throughout that game. But it is alarming because if there's one thing that I don't want slumping going into March Madness, it's my defense. Because a defense can slow down a good offense and it can buy your team time to figure things out offensively. Man, Illini, if they go on an 0 for 10 stretch, they could be down 20 points already because their defense is playing so bad. So I'm getting very concerned. I know Brad Underwood's trying to downplay it. The red alarm bells are starting to go off for T-Bone because it does smell like a potential first-round exit or second-round exit if they don't figure it out.
Illinois is to the Big Ten what Alabama is to the SEC. Great offensively, terrible defensively. Just so many issues on that side of the ball. Just for context on this, nerdy number time, Alabama's first in the country in offensive efficiency. They're 99th in defensive efficiency. Illinois third in offensive efficiency, 94th in defensive efficiency. That's not the type of team that can win consistently once you get to the month of March. It's a team that can win, get to the Sweet 16, something like that, but eventually you're going to run into a team like Connecticut, like Arizona, like Duke, and eventually you'll end up going up against a team that just has a better offensive night than you. And they've got a better defense. They get a couple of stops. You don't get to 90. And suddenly it's the other team that ends up coming away with that. You know how I know that? Because I rooted for Mizzou last year. And that was Mizzou's profile as a basketball team a year ago. They lost again last night.
They were in that one for a while last night. Kind of.
I don't think they're going to win a game.
Who they got left on their schedule? Because
They've
may
got
shock you. I've kind of quit paying attention.
Ole Miss.
Did you ever start paying attention to them?
They've got LSU on the road, and they've got Auburn at home. There's no chance they're beating Auburn. Auburn's actually good. Their last best chance to win is Saturday against Ole Miss because they can beat them.
I hope Dennis Gates is grooming those next players that are coming in to have more talent than this.
2 guys on this team that I think are even worth bringing back next year. You bring back Tamar Bates. He's a good player.
Vanover's good.
Ant Robinson, I guess you can bring him back. Jordan Butler, sure.
The fact that you said, I guess you can bring him back.
Aiden Shaw,
tells you everything.
okay. Trent Pierce, at one point, I thought was going to have a good season. This team stinks. Stinks. No fun.
I can get tickets, according to ESPN.com, versus Auburn, number 11 Auburn, for $2. $2 to watch them play Auburn? That's probably courtside.
Not worth the paper they're printed on. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. From the 980, guys on the balloon party, they were talking about great sidekicks in St. Louis sports history. For example, Scottie Pippen had Michael Jordan. Who would be some of your top sidekicks for St. Louis? Hull & Oates, which has been replicated, of course, by Mike Hoffman and Robert Thomas.
True. So I have heard that.
I would say that those are comparable.
Somebody smart very much said that. Technically, I was right on the Oates part.
Who would you say are the best current duos in St. Louis sports?
I would say, well, I don't know if current, but like projection with the current players, Wynn and Walker. I think that's
a fun one.
Yeah.
No, I mean, Arenado and Goldie would probably be the top one right now.
Yeah.
I mean, technically for the Blues, you're probably going with Thomas and
Kyrou.
I don't think you are. I don't think you're picking those.
Are you going Letty and Parayko?
No.
It's really getting you off your feet.
Krug and Kessel. That's what's getting me excited.
For sure.
Honestly, the duo with the Blues is probably Binnington Hofer.
I guess
that's your duo.
That's probably true.
I mean, that's as close you've been to Elliott and Halak that you've probably ever had. So, yeah, I would say that's your duo. And next year, that's going to be your duo until you go get Mitch Marner.
City would probably be like Leuven and Klaus.
Probably
as your duo.
Because like, there's nobody that really pairs with Berkey.
Yeah.
Like maybe Parker, but like,
is that the best one right now going in St. Louis?
Leuven and Klaus.
I mean, relative to their peers, for example.
Cook and Burden.
Oh, that's a good one.
That's probably your
really
best
good
duo.
One. Yeah, hell yeah. That's the one.
That's probably your best duo.
Honestly,
I mean, Mahomes and Kelsey.
An argument for it.
Hey, that's not our team. We don't root for them.
Yeah.
Coming up next, the Cardinals are going to waste a golden opportunity that's right there in front of them.
Oh, God, a Victor Scott segment.
And it's so frustrating. We'll talk about it next here on 101 ESPN. So the Cardinals have an opportunity. It's right there in front of them. It's on a silver platter. Alex, we know this is not a team that's going to give out a 10-year contract. Hell, they're not going to give out a 5-year, $125 million contract. Certainly not to a starting pitcher. And they might not have to. This offseason, things have gotten so weird in Major League Baseball with the TV contracts, teams like the Rangers and the Yankees and the Dodgers basically capped out at this point in time, that both Blake Snell and Jordan Montgomery, we're a week into spring training, and both are very much available on the free agent market still. I think Jordan Montgomery is going to end up going to Boston. I don't know when that'll happen. I don't know what the contract will be, but I think eventually that will happen. There is zero buzz on Blake Snell. There's people that are saying, hey, the Yankees make sense, and it's just like I think he would make sense on the Yankees kind of thing. There's not like reporting of the Yankees are definitely interested in him. It was a once upon a time they offered him a contract, and he probably fits with what they want to do.
Then they signed Stroman.
The Yankees. Let's go with that. That makes sense. Here's John Heyman yesterday on Foul Territory with the latest update on the market for both Blake Snell and Jordan Montgomery.
I think Snell's going to look at that Bellinger deal and say, hey, that's pretty good. I'm not getting exactly what I wanted on a long-term deal. I'm willing to do that 3-year deal with an opt-out after 1 year. So if you've only got an opt-out after 1 year, you probably need to be in camp pretty soon, right? I mean, you need to be ready to go. To me, Montgomery is going to get that long deal from somebody. You know, they're going to be a team out there, whether it's Texas or Boston, maybe the Mets even. There's going to be a team out there because, I mean, look, he's been consistently good, durable, great in the clutch, and young enough, and he should get a long-term deal.
So I think he's right. I think Montgomery will get a long-term deal. I think it'll come from the Boston Red Sox. It's just a matter of when that will take place. I have no idea what the situation is going to be with Blake Snell. And if you're the Cardinals, this is a market that has fallen into your lap. How many times have we heard John Mozeliak say, we want to be opportunistic. We'll never say never on anything. We're always looking to improve. We're always seeing what's available for us out there. Well, Mo, you have one serious flaw in your roster right now. Kyle Gibson has served up back-to-back home runs in his first spring training outing.
How many pitches did it take?
But he's going to go deep. If you look at the pitch count, like he's still got a ton of pitches to use.
5 pitches.
He's still going to give you 5 innings. It just might be 15-0.
Yeah, Lane Thomas and James Wood back-to-back home runs to start off this game.
James Wood, I love him acting.
James Wood is one of those prospects that they got back in return for Juan Soto.
Oh, well, he has to be great when you trade away Juan Soto.
I think he's like 20 years old.
Oh, well, he just sees the strike zone well. It was a tough pitch by Kyle Gibson.
91-mile-per-hour sinker was hit over the fence, and then before that, it was an 81-mile-an-hour sweeper that was hit over the fence by Lane Thomas.
All I know is he's going to give them innings.
Probably. He'll probably go 6 today. I believe the Cardinals have a problem with their number 2 starter, and I think most Cardinals fans agree with that. If you got him on Truth Serum, I think Mo agrees with that. I think he's looking at his rotation right now and saying to himself, yeah, I hope. I kind of have some belief. But there's no way you can have any sort of firm, strong, full-throated support of this current rotation as a contending rotation.
You're not watching this?
If he's going to take Blake Snell a 3-year deal similar to what you got with Bellinger, Alex, why would the Cardinals not be involved in that?
I think it's easy. Because he doesn't want to be in St. Louis. That is how John Mozeliak gauges the free agent market. I don't think it has anything to do with, the deal fell into our lap, and look how good this is for our team. Mo looks at this and says, does the guy want to be in St. Louis? And if he doesn't...
You know what makes him want to be in St. Louis? Money.
Well,
money is the best way to say, you know what, incentivize that player to be here. Go give them money.
But Mo doesn't want to incentivize the player. Mo wants the player to come to St. Louis and say, I want to be a Cardinal. Great. Now we can fleece you for a deal. Like, there's no... When was the last time that somebody who didn't resemble a Cardinal signed with the Cardinals?
Mike Leake. Man, but he's kind of a sinker baller, so he kind of fit into the...
I mean, more personality-wise. Like,
Mike Leake.
Well, I mean, touche, but I mean...
Contreras.
Probably Contreras, but Contreras wanted to be a Cardinal. Yeah. Contreras idolized Yadier Molina.
I don't know if Dexter Fowler really wanted to be a Cardinal.
I kind of got that vibe.
I think that was they gave the extra year.
And that's probably
Brett Cease wanted to be a streamer.
A video game streamer?
Yeah.
I saw him play NHL. I think it was 16, and he was not good. But
They didn't like that.
So here's the thing, though. Like,
Very confident in that. They didn't like that he was playing video games at the clubhouse.
I don't know why. I mean, he was willing to let people play. He had another controller on his seat next to him.
And it was never
Nobody
used.
wanted to come play with Brett
I
Cecil.
would have gone and played with Brett
I
Cecil.
thought about it, but then I didn't want to get yelled at.
Should have sat down next to him.
I thought about it so bad. But then I remembered I'm just some scrub doing
team did he
weekend
use?
pre
Do you
and post.
remember?
Huh?
Which team
It was
did he
Washington
use?
Capitals. I
He was
think
the
he's from
Capitals?
D.C., isn't he? It was the
I have no
Washington
idea.
Capitals. He was bragging about how he was using Ovechkin. I'm like, cool, that's like using Mike Vick in NFL and Madden games. Like, slow down, bro. Anyway, like Dexter Fowler, if that's the guy that we can think of, that was desperation mode. They're not in desperation mode. Cardinals and John Lozano.
They are.
No, they're not. Mo believes that Gibson and Lynn are going to be good for him.
Give me Lynn 2024, baby.
They had no other center fielder available to them that season when they went for Fowler. Mo's sitting here acting like Matthew Liberatore is going to join the rotation at some point. So you ask why he won't sign here, and I'm with you. The Cardinals should do this. But to me, it's simple. Unless the player is outspoken of, I want to be a Cardinal, Cardinals aren't even engaging in that conversation.
Somebody from the 980 says, BK, where did your fascination of Blake Snell come from, by the way? Earlier in the offseason, you didn't want him at all. T-Bone was the only one on this show that wanted him. You spent 3 months talking about Aaron Nola instead.
Yeah, you fraud.
I
I
did,
did
want
prefer Aaron Nola.
instead.
I did. I absolutely wanted Aaron Nola. And by the way, I'm going to go out on a limb and say, based on what the Cardinals ended up signing this offseason, they probably preferred Aaron Nola as well. They wanted innings, and Aaron Nola provides those in bulk. But Aaron Nola was never leaving Philadelphia, is what we found out after the fact. And Philly was never going to let him leave the Phillies organization. So that became a non-starter. They go out, they get Sonny Gray. I campaigned for that. I thought that was a really smart signing by them at the time. Continue to believe that today. Why do I change my opinion on Blake Snell? Because the market has changed, guys. I'm not sure I wanted Blake Snell on a 5-year, $150 million contract with no opt-outs. There's a lot of risk involved in that. But I'm interested in every player at the right price. Like, I'm interested in them going out and getting Jordan Montgomery. I don't know that I would give Jordan Montgomery a 5-year, $125 million contract, but if he's willing to come on the Cody Bellinger deal, yeah, absolutely I'm willing to give him that. I'm interested in a lot of the relievers that were available this offseason on the market. I'm not giving a $100 million deal, though, to a Josh Hader. But if he wanted to come to the St. Louis on a 1-year, $20 million deal, absolutely I'm interested in something like this. So it's all about what is the risk. Everybody's got a certain threshold for their risk that they're willing to go to. For Blake Snell, I think we're meeting it. I think we're now at the place where I'm interested with this version of the risk that is involved with Blake Snell. If it's a 3-year deal with opt-outs, hell yeah, dude. I'm totally interested in doing something like that for him. So that's why my opinion has changed on him, because the market has changed for him.
Yeah, and I'm 100% in on it as well. And I think to Alex's point, I don't even know if it's so much the Cardinals. I think you're right about what they do want somebody that wants to be a Cardinal. I think the thing for them is they want the control on it. Look at the deals that they signed. You got Lynn and Gibson that have options that the Cardinals control because of what we talked about.
But isn't that the deal Bellinger signed?
No, because
No,
his
it's
has
the
got
opposite.
players. His
his
is
is
a player,
player options?
And
I
I think
gotcha.
the fear that the Cardinals have, because I think you're right. I think Mo and Truthstern would say they need a number 2 starter. I think the fear that they have is if this season does go south. Now, I would argue that if you have Blake Snell, it helps prevent it from going
Exactly.
south. But they would argue if it does go south, we want to control to be to the point where if Goldschmidt's gone, maybe
Then
they
trade him.
explore trading Arenado.
If the season goes south, guess what you have? You have Blake Snell on a potentially expiring contract that you can trade elsewhere. That's a great deal to have available at the deadline. Do you know how many teams are going to be lining up for the potential to trade for Blake Snell, who could be a number 1 or 2 starter for them in their rotation at the deadline? Like, you become a clearinghouse. If your season stinks, I don't think it would if you go out there and get Blake Snell. You now have Paul Goldschmidt and Blake Snell, and you could trade maybe one of the younger players that doesn't fit into your long-term plan. So maybe Dylan Carlson or Alec Burleson become available for you. Like Lance Lynn, Kyle Gibson. You become to the Major League Baseball trade deadline what Doug Armstrong was last year at the NHL trade deadline. Oh, you need a defenseman and a center? Well, come on over, baby. We got that for you in spades.
You need a 39-year-old pitcher?
That's right.
We
you
got
need a
him.
right winger and you need a defenseman? Well, here you go, Rangers. We've got that available for you. Oh, you're another team that just needs grit in the middle of your lineup? Well, here, I've got Ivan Barbashev. The Cardinals could become that team. And that's in a worst-case scenario. Like, you're still getting assets in return, and you're spending $30 million for it. In a best-case scenario, dude, you built a World Series contender by going out and signing this guy. it's really frustrating to me that the Cardinals appear to just be completely blowing this off as an opportunity when this is the exact kind of signing they're missing. It's the exact kind of signing that would get Cardinals fans, I genuinely believe, excited. And the risk here is incredibly limited because you're a team that has Lance Lynn and Kyle Gibson potentially on expiring deals. If you don't want to bring him back, guess what? Next year, if Blake Snell, it ends up being a really good situation for him and for you, maybe he picks up his option. You decline the options on the other two, it's a neutral value. The money that you were going to give to Kyle Gibson and Lance Lynn, you just repurpose that for next year to Blake Snell on your budget. So
you much rather have a Kyle Gibson who gives up 112 mile an hour home run to James Wood.
Is that what it was?
112 miles an hour.
He's not walking anybody.
He is not. He got 20 pitches through the first inning, so he's going to go deep.
The 4 batted balls against Kyle Gibson in the first inning. 102 miles per hour, 112 miles per hour, 101 miles per hour, 97 miles per hour. Now 2 of those were outs. 2 of those were ground outs.
Yeah, thanks to Nolan Arenado and Mason Wynn.
Yep.
Now,
they were outs nonetheless.
I understand why he...
Alex, as we know, it's about the result, not the process.
Now I understand why he led the major leagues in hits allowed. Yeah. Can't wait for this guy.
Coming up next, let's dive into some NFL quick hitters here on 101 ESPN. Hey, coming up in 10 minutes, you're going to have an opportunity to beat the Blues. And today, Alex, you're playing against the captain. We've got Braden Shin coming up next. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. In order to get involved, you need to send us a text that says, I can beat the Blues. And if you were texter number 10, 11, or 12, you are going to be a part of Can You Beat the Blues in the next segment.
Wow, so Braden Shen number, Brian Sutter number, Adam Oates number.
That's right. 10, 11, or 12. You're going up against Braden Shin today. We'll have three contestants. The winner will get a hockey puck signed by Braden Shin and a pair of Blues tickets. You can't beat this, but you might be able to beat Braden Shin. You'll have your opportunity to do that coming up here in just a little bit. But first, let's get into NFL quick hitters. Alex, the NFL Combine is officially taking place today. I believe is the first day that they're having all of the stuff on the field. They're getting some measurements today, some defensive ends. Chop Robinson is one of the defensive ends in this year's NFL
chopping
draft.
Through the competition.
Apparently somebody chopped off his arms because he got T-Rex arms.
Whoa.
He's one of
That's not
4.
Fun.
If he goes in the first round, which is the expectation, he'll be one of the 5 shortest arms that has been selected.
So we had tiny hands and short arms.
As a defensive end in the NFL draft. I've also got your version of Jordan Davis this year.
Who is it?
It's Tavondre Swift, former Texas defensive tackle. There was some concern that he was going to come in at 4 bills this year.
Oh, my God.
He weighed in at 366 pounds, and that was considered to be a win for him, my friend.
Wow.
So we're proud of him for that.
All right, 366 pounds. Is he an offensive lineman?
He's a defensive tackle. Gonna plug that gap, baby.
Go ahead. How big is Vita Vea?
330?
That dude has to be the biggest defensive tackle in the game.
I think he was like 330 if I'm not mistaken. 345.
This guy's 366.
This guy is 366.
Oh my God.
Wow. Remember Mount Cody, Terrence Cody back in the day? I bet you he was closer to 360.
6'6", 3. Oh my God.
Terrence Cody was listed at 370. So this guy is like Terrence Cody size.
All right.
To give you
All right, Eagles, make the move.
There you go.
Oh my
Get
gosh.
3 of them.
I do want to talk a little bit about some of the biggest storylines at this year's NFL Combine. Alex, most of the top quarterbacks are not going to be participating. Caleb Williams is not doing anything. Jaden Daniels not doing anything. I will be curious to see if he weighs in. That's something that people are interested in. And then Drake May, I don't believe, is going to be throwing either. J.J. McCarthy, from everything I've seen, is expected to throw, though. And, Alex, there is some buzz.
Of course there is.
That Jaden Daniels and J.J. McCarthy, some teams might have them over Drake May as the number 2 quarterback in this year's class. Drake May is the kid from North Carolina, Jaden Daniels from LSU, and J.J. McCarthy, of course, from the national champion Michigan Wolverines. What would your reaction be if at the NFL draft, Roger Goodell comes up to the podium and says, with the 2nd overall pick in the 2024 NFL draft, the Washington Commanders select J.J. McCarthy, Michigan quarterback.
I thought Washington was trying to get out of being bad for the last 15 years, and that's your pick? That's your pick. With the 3 guys that I think could be franchise quarterbacks, and May, Williams, Daniels, and you pick J.J. McCarthy. Cool. Congrats being the 2.0 New England Patriots with a quarterback that's going to be average. That's my reaction, BK.
This would be my reaction.
What the Nailed it.
What? J.J. McCarthy's viewed as a project, right? Like he should be going into a spot where he's not viewed as the starter right away. Like he needs to be in the Jordan Love role where it's drafted and he sits for a year and probably learns behind whoever you want to have as the starter. Washington's going to bring him in to become the starter. Like, it makes no sense.
You picked him 2nd overall.
And I never saw him at Michigan with a national championship caliber team be the guy that led them on a drive to win a championship.
He's also very small. He's like 200 pounds.
He doesn't throw. Oh, you know what? I learned my lesson from Bryce Young.
Well, not short. He's just slight. He's slight in frame.
Tiny, no thanks.
So, I'm with you guys. I would not take him in my top 3. I would go... I think I'm with the consensus right now. I'm Caleb Williams 1, Drake May 2, Jaden Daniels 3, J.J. McCarthy 4. I'm higher on McCarthy than you guys are. I do think there's some talent there, and it seems like he's got all of the, like, man, coaches are going to get him in the room. They're going to love him. He's going to be great on the board. All that stuff that coaches just fall in love with, right? I would be fine with taking him in the top 5 because you got to do it to get your quarterback. Jaden Daniels is somebody that I did want to ask you guys about because I find him to be the most interesting quarterback in this year's class, the LSU Heisman Trophy winning quarterback this year. There was a great piece by Nate Tice earlier today on Yahoo Sports about Jaden Daniels and some of the pluses that come with him and some of the negatives that are very evident in his game. He wrote the following. Jaden Daniels threw over the intermediate part of the field, which is 10 to 25 yards down the field, and between the numbers. So the middle of the field, 10 to 25 yards down the field, about 9% of the time. That was in the bottom 10 percentile of college quarterbacks last year. The only quarterback to be drafted in the first 2 rounds over the last 5 years with a lower rate in that area was Justin Fields with 8%. So you're looking at a quarterback that does a lot of the same things that Justin Fields does, which is throwing the ball deep. He's got a good arm, but really not even as strong of an arm as Justin Fields does. He's a very good runner. He's very fast. He's explosive in that regard, but he's also much smaller than Justin Fields. Fields was like 230 pounds. Jaden Daniels is going to be lucky to get to like 205. And he doesn't throw to the middle of the field, which is the same issue that we've seen with Justin Fields at the NFL level. Oh, by the way, he takes a ton of sacks, similar to Justin Fields. If I tell you Jaden Daniels is a slighter, maybe not quite as good version of Justin Fields, where do you take that player in the NFL draft?
Not top 3. Definitely not top 3.
Because we're talking right now with the Bears where it's like, hey, you're fine with Justin Fields, but you probably like to upgrade. Do you take that guy mid-first round? Is that a guy you take late first round? Like, where do you take that kind of a player?
I definitely take a chance on him. If I'm Washington, if I'm New England, I don't know if I'm going to be as aggressive because I don't have the roster in place for that player to come in and succeed right away. And I don't even know if there's a quarterback that could do that with what both of those teams possess. But, like, if I'm Atlanta and Jaden Daniels is still there, if I'm a team that, thinks in the next year or so I could get there, then I'd take a chance on him because you don't know. Like, he could project that way, and then all of a sudden he comes out of nowhere. Everybody thought Bryce Young was going to be great, and look what happened.
Well, not everybody.
Well, BK did.
Yeah.
Some of us were out on him from the very beginning.
I don't think people really expected C.J. Stroud to be as good as he was, and he stepped in and
8-month-old toddler of a son is as big as Bryce Young.
Oh, come on.
It's not
true.
all that different.
It's not true.
He's bite size.
Is it is it odd if I say, like, I still think you take him top 3, but I don't think if you're a team, like, to Alex's point, like in New England, you don't do it.
Because of desperation.
Because of desperation. Mm-hmm. I think what you have to do if you're a team like New England that's sitting at 3, if he's on the board, you almost have to, like, trade down. And the reason I say that is because you're not in a spot to have him come in and have success.
If you're Atlanta, do you trade up for that player?
Yeah.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Because we're talking about Justin Fields and the Bears want to get away from him. I think the Bears want to get away from him because his ceiling, we talked about this the other day, his ceiling is what, like a 10 to 15th best quarterback in the league, which arguably if you have a good setup, it's fine to draft that guy top 3. But if you're a team that doesn't have weapons around him like the New England Patriots, it makes more sense to trade down, get some more draft picks, kind of build from without, maybe even go with a McCarthy later in the draft, for example. And if you're the Falcons, then it makes sense because you've got the weapons to where he can potentially come in and be that 10th to 15th best quarterback, and you can potentially win that way.
If Kirk Cousins leaves, let's say Kirk Cousins ends up signing in Atlanta, for example. Minnesota's picking 11th overall. Is that another team that could fit into that criteria where you say, you know what, it makes sense for us because we do have 2 really good wide receivers. We've got TJ Hawkinson. We've got a coach that we believe in. We're in a division that's Detroit's really good, but there's winnable opportunities here. Is that another team that could fit into that criteria?
Yeah, I would take a chance on that one. I mean, I think if I'm going to draft Jaden Daniels, I need to know
I think he's going top 5. Like, I think that's definitely happening, but it's just a matter of, like, do you trade up for that? Are you giving up a first and a second round pick?
If I have an offensive line that I know can at least somewhat protect him this season and give him time to have success and have somewhat of a weapon arsenal to use in the first year, absolutely, I take a chance on that one.
I think I'm with you, but I would just do it if I'm New England. Like, I think you bite the bullet, and I understand that there's risk here for sure, but you got to get the quarterback. Like, if you don't have the quarterback, we've seen this so many different times, nothing else matters. And if you're New England, who knows what you're going to be this year? It might be good, it might be bad. I don't know if I'm going to have another opportunity to draft top 3, though. I hope I don't, certainly. And if you don't draft in the top 3, you're not getting that quarterback. And next year's quarterback class stinks. from every report that's out there, and we watched a lot of college football this year, guys, the quarterbacks that you cared about were in this class. These are the guys that you want. So I think I would just take him. And you live with the bad and you hope for some more of the good. And maybe there's some more development over the middle of the field. The other thing that I wanted to get to, there was a piece earlier today on ESPN.com about the best running backs available. And they broke them down into different tiers. The only guy that they said is a franchise caliber running back that could be available this offseason is Saquon Barkley. Next from there, they had Derrick Henry as a Pro Bowl caliber starter, with Nick Chubb and Aaron Jones as potential cap casualties that fit into this criteria. And then they had capable starters, which included Austin Eckler, Josh Jacobs, DeAndre Swift, Joe Mixon, and Alvin Kamara. Do you guys agree with that? Is that how you would put them into categories?
Yeah, I'm a little skeptical with Saquon being at that. I would put Saquon in the same category as Derrick Henry, to where like Pro Bowl, but I think that's as good as it's going to get.
If you're the Texans, because you've brought them up a lot as the team that like most notably needs a running back and could play in this market, who's the guy that you're looking at as like, I got to have that running back?
I think I would go Derrick Henry.
Interesting.
And it's only because, and I know he's had injuries in the past, but it's only because I know that dude is at least available for me. And the best part about it is, if I go to Houston, I'm not going to have to use him as much as he was used in Tennessee, but I've got a guy that if I need to get a first down, I don't have to rely on C.J. Stroud magic. I can get those little plays, and then I can go back to throwing the ball. Whereas the other guys, I'm not sure about availability, but I also feel like they don't match what Houston needs right now.
So this is going to be bold. Am I crazy for saying Nick Chubb? I know he's coming off of a huge injury, and you have no idea what he's going to look like coming back this year. But if he gets cut by the Browns, man, that dude is one. I mean, as a pure runner,
you have to take a chance on Nick Chubb, even if you're worried about his injuries.
He is special.
He's the best out of all of those players.
He is a special running back, arguably the best pure runner in the NFL right now. There's injury questions, obviously. That's the only reason he would even become available. But I think he would probably be my top choice. I'm not sure he would be for the Texans. Like, they need a guy that can come in and start, and there's no questions about it. And for that reason, I would probably go with Saquon for them, because he's got so much explosiveness. And I want that in my passing game to pair with C.J. Stroud as well.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm a team that has, like, a 1A type of a running back, I'm going to bring him up. If I'm the Chiefs, I can combine that with Isaiah Pacheco. I've got a 1A, 1B situation where I'm not relying super heavily on Nick Chubb early in the season. That's the exact type of situation that I would like to see.
I would go him first, only if I don't have to rely on him at the beginning of the season.
Like Baltimore. If Baltimore can bring back one of their running backs this offseason, like you bring back Gus Edwards and I've got Nick Chubb, that would be a fun pairing there. Buffalo. If Buffalo could have James Cook and Nick Chubb, now we're really talking.
Yeah.
Those are the kinds of teams that I think make a lot of sense for him. All right, coming up in 10 minutes or so, we're going to talk about something that happened yesterday on Jeopardy. I want to get Alex's reaction because I think this would be Alex if he was a member of a Jeopardy, if he was a contestant on Jeopardy and he won a bunch of money. We'll let you hear the audio coming up here in just a little bit. But next, can you beat the Blues here on 101 ESPN?
Terry Hendrickson here with a Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. The Blues fell in overtime to the Edmonton Oilers last night, 3-2. They'll be back in action on Saturday when they host the Minnesota Wild. Well, bringing coverage starting at 4 o'clock with Alex Ferrario and Joey Vitale. Then Joey will join Chris Kerber for Puck Drop at 5. And the Cardinals currently in spring training action as they are losing to the Washington Nationals 3-0 as they head to the top of the third inning. Kyle Gibson making his spring training debut. This Sports Center update was driven by Johnny Londoff. Find your road shop 24/7 at londoff.com, lotfotoplex.com. Are you kidding me?
He's Alex Ferrario, that is Tanner Hendrickson, and I'm Brandon Kiley. Each and every week here on BK and Ferrario, we play a game called Can You Beat the Blues? It is a very simple game. We're going to give you a category. You're going to go up against a St. Louis Blues player, somebody different every week. This week, the contestant is Braden Shin, and within that category, you will have 15 seconds to name as many different things as you can. For example, if I said, Alex, name as many different colors as you can in 15 seconds. On your mark, get set, go.
Blue, red, yellow, magenta.
That's it.
Ocean breeze.
Ocean breeze is
Alex
a good
got
one.
4. If we went to
That's
Braden
terrible.
Shin, Braden Shin got 5. Alex got a -1 there, and we continue to go on from there. Whoever has the best margin of victory at the end of this thing will be the player that has beat the Blues. We have 3 contestants today. It is Connor, Jackson, and Jeremy. They are all 3 on the line, ready to go today. Connor's going to be our first contestant going up against Braden Shin. Connor, how you doing, my man?
Good, how are you?
Oh, we're doing fantastic. Do you understand the rules of the game, and do you believe that you're going to be able to beat Braden Shin?
Yep.
All right, Connor.
Come on, Connor.
yeah.
Just one word there. Ready to go.
Let's go, Connor. I can feel the energy coming from you. Connor, your category today is going to be zoo animals.
Oh, baby.
Name as many animals that you would see at the zoo as you can in 15 seconds. On your mark, get set, go.
Tiger, elephant, polar bear, grizzly bear, penguin, giraffe,
We're buzzing.
penguin, prairie dog,
Nice.
lion, tiger, bear.
So I got 8.
I got 8.
Okay.
We went penguin twice.
Yeah.
I respect the prairie dog inclusion there,
Dude,
Connor.
that should have been +2. Are you kidding me? If you
I
say
feel
prairie
like
dog.
I was walking around the St. Louis Zoo with Connor
That was
as he
the
did
idea.
that.
Yeah. Well, and, I always say, you got to say squirrels or birds because they're not in any displays at the zoo, but you see them all the time.
I would.
I mean, I
feel
would
like
see
a
them at the
peacock
zoo.
is count worthy. I don't know if a squirrel or a raccoon.
If I walked into the zoo and a squirrel ran across in front of me, I would say, I just saw a squirrel at the zoo.
do you consider it a zoo animal?
It's in
It's
the
in
zoo.
the zoo.
Oh, you guys are the
You know
worst.
what,
When
Connor?
it leaves the zoo, it's not a zoo
quick
animal.
question. Is it because you didn't say lion until after the buzzer because you've never seen a lion roar in person?
100%.
For sure.
There it is.
Yeah, if
Connor,
you had seen it, that would have been the first
Connor's
thing.
like, you two idiots, shut up. I want to see if I beat Braden Shin.
All right, let's hear from Braden Shin. He's got kids. He knows about the St. Louis Zoo. It's free, by the way, if you have never been there. Let's find out if he knows his zoo animals.
Panda, monkeys, orangutans, penguins, horses, buffaloes, giraffes, elephants, zebras, lions.
I got 10. Is that what you guys said?
I got 10 as well.
He said horses and buffaloes.
Hey, man.
The
Petting zoo, man.
the weirdest walkthrough of the zoo ever.
Have you ever seen horses at the
No, I
zoo?
have. It's just I've never seen a horse and a buffalo and been like, I just saw a horse and a buffalo at the zoo. That's a weird walkthrough, man.
I don't know, man. It's like, chimpanzees. You got the little monkey. Like you're walking
Going to
through
the
zoo
herpes
together.
terrarium. See a lot of animals there.
What's your favorite exhibit at the zoo when you go? What's your favorite
It's the
area?
penguin. It's the penguin house. Are you kidding me?
Especially in the summer.
Oh, yeah. Well,
Oh,
that's,
dude, it's air conditioned.
I like the
so
reptile
crowded.
house. Reptile
No,
house is
see,
my
I
favorite.
can't go in the
that's a no-go.
herpetarium.
That's a no-go.
That's a
That's a
no-go.
What's wrong
no-go.
with
I don't do snakes.
Connor, I apologize, but you did not beat Braden Shin. Stay on the line, though. You might end up with a winning score. You got a -2, so Connor is our first contestant. -2 on the Zoo Animals. Jackson is on the line. I hope this is not Jackson Burkett. You can't win, sir.
Is this Jackson from the balloon party?
How you doing, man?
It is not Jackson from the balloon party.
No, the voice sounds better.
No. Thank you.
You're very welcome, Jackson. Hey, Jackson, do you believe that you can beat Braden Shin, and do you understand the rules of the game today, my friend?
I understand. I'll give it my best try.
All right, that's all you can
hell
do.
yeah, Jackson.
Jackson, name as many different types of drinks as you can in 15 seconds. Types of drinks as you can in 15 seconds. On your mark, get set, go.
Beer, wine, soda, water, juice, milk, kombucha, milkshakes, Gatorade, eggnog, fruit punch.
I respect the fact that he went broad categories and didn't get tied up.
I got to tell you, that
guys
might
have
have been
10?
I got 10.
Sorry,
that might have
T-Bone.
been the most impressive
That was good.
15 seconds for Can You Beat the Blues that we have had since we've started doing this game.
When he went broad there
I
for a
agree.
second, I went, oh, he's gonna run.
I agree. Get it, Jackson.
When he went broad, it's like, oh, he's gonna run out.
I did too. I thought when he got past soda,
when
he
he
was going
said
to be like,
soda, I was like, game
done.
over, you lose.
done. It's like you got to start specifics. But man, this guy pulled out kombucha, eggnog. Yeah, that was impressive.
That was well done. All right, let's see if Braden Shin knows his drinks. I'm going to go out on a limb and say I don't think he knows them as well as Jackson does.
But he knows kombucha.
Gatorade, Powerade, apple juice, orange juice, Sprite, Coke, Pepsi, root beer, cream soda, Mountain Dew, BioSteel.
Man, he went the specific route, and that was close. But it was more. It was 11.
He beat you. He got a -1, but Jackson, you're our leader in the clubhouse. Connor, I apologize. You have officially been eliminated.
Sorry, Connor.
From Can You Beat the Blues? But Jackson, he's got a -1. And honestly, I feel like his performance was more impressive than Braden Shin's. It's one of those games, Alex, where
You
you
were going to
watch
say
it
Connor, and I'm like, damn, that was mean.
and you're like, they were the better team, but they didn't come out with a win.
Like the Blues last night.
There you go. Next one up here, we got Jeremy, our third contestant on the line today, going up against Braden Shin. Jeremy, appreciate you joining the show, man. Do you understand the rules of the game, and do you believe that you're going to be able to beat Braden Shin today?
I do understand, and I do believe.
Jeremy, how do you feel about education?
Oh, God.
Don't answer that. Please don't. We don't have to get into that. I don't need that on the show. Not today. We've been having a good time together. We don't need to go down that path.
It's just a broad question that I'm just curious what Jeremy thinks.
Well, Alex, let me tell you about my
We'll give it
thoughts
a
on
go.
public versus private. All right, Jeremy, your category today is subjects in school. Name as many different school subjects as you can in 15 seconds. On your mark, get set, go.
English, reading, geography, math, geometry, art, science, German, Spanish, I said geography, geometry, calculus.
Okay, so he started rambling them. I got 10.
I got 9.
I had 9.
Okay,
I got
because
9.
he like rambled them there, and it was very impressive.
Jeremy,
Okay,
that was good work.
That was
I'm
really
surprised
good.
you didn't get to French. You
Or-
went Spanish, you went German. No French, though, from
Or
our guy,
recess,
Jeremy.
or PE.
That would've
Surprised you
been
didn't get to
good,
those two. I would have accepted
I
recess.
didn't know those. I thought you meant I didn't know those were counted as subjects.
No,
I
it's
did-
cool.
I
You
did
play
the
the game
gym,
the
though.
way it's supposed
You know
to
what?
be played. Alex is just
Yeah.
looking for every loophole
You know what, Jeremy?
possible.
That's why I asked how you felt about education. You were smarter than me. You didn't say recess. That was the first one I
He
thought
also
of.
was smart in not answering the question.
Very true,
which
too.
I definitely appreciate. All right, Jeremy's got 9. Let's go to Braden Shin to see how many subjects he can name in school.
Math, biology, chemistry, gym, cooking, woodworking class.
There you go.
As an athlete.
This guy hasn't been in school in a while.
I love anytime I hear somebody say woodworking or cooking class, I think of the scene in Superbad where the guy's tying the rope around Michael Cera.
Did you ever take any families and consumer sciences classes?
No, I took a home ec, as he mentioned there, the cooking, and then of course
thing.
we all did the sex ed class.
You did?
Yeah.
My wife said she did not have a sex ed course in high
Was she
school.
public or private school?
Public.
I was going to say, I was public. My wife was private, and I think they did it for like 2 straight years where they had the sex ed class. But yeah, I
Did you, T-Bone?
went through it.
Yeah.
You did?
Yeah.
So the Illinois curriculum.
Yeah.
They brought out
only
They brought out the dolls and they, showed us all of the things. It was weird, man. It was real weird.
Yeah, we had a health class freshman year where
that was
we got the birds and the bees talk.
Yeah, mine was middle school actually.
Oh yeah, mine was middle school too.
We had the video in middle school, and then we had like a course.
So there's one thing you don't do. It's like
Jeremy's still on the
Wait, Jeremy, what's going on right now?
Congratulations, Jeremy. Jeremy's our winner today. He beat the Blues. He beat Braden Shin. We'll get off of that conversation. Maybe. Puck signed by Braden Shin is going to go to Jeremy. He will also be going to the Blues game against Vegas Golden Knights. He gets to see the return of Ivan Barbashev here in St. Louis. Oh, stop it. On March 25th against the Vegas Golden Knights. Congratulations, Jeremy.
You get to see a booch.
Thanks, fellas.
You got it,
Jeremy.
Yes.
Yeah,
Jeremy.
There's something about having sex ed with fifth graders that was weird back in the day, There's a lot of giggling.
Early.
There was a lot of giggling.
Feels a little early.
But it stuck.
Wait, what? I was talking with our executive producer. The only thing
Alex
I heard was it was
cheaper by the
stuck.
dozen at home. I'm not sure it's stuck with you, man.
Two and a half. Actually, 2 and 3/4.
Ferrario softball teams
2 and a quarter.
coming along.
2 2/4. Second trimester. I don't know. Hey, thanks to Comfort Experts, the independent American Standard Heating and Air.
How many?
There's 3 trimesters.
Yeah.
Or mesters. Trimesters kind of speaks for itself. So she's in the second trimester. That'd be 2/3. 2 and 2/3.
There you go. Coming up next, the Chunk Drawer. We'll try to get this thing back on the rails next here on 101 ESPN. Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, I think I found Alex's doppelganger, not in look, but in what he would do if he had won on Jeopardy.
Been told I look like Paul Walker. R.I.P.
No, you haven't.
Yeah, I have.
All right, I gotta look at Paul Walker.
Just not blonde. I'm dark hair. They said a dark haired Paul Walker.
I feel like that's a significant difference.
I said, well, no, not really. The facial features. I think, you know who I think I look like?
And that nothing like Paul Walker.
That Anthony Carbonara off of, you ever see the show The Carbonaro Effect? He's like some magician or something. Look him up. That's who I think I look like. But that's just me. Now, personality, very different. More like The Sopranos.
That feels right.
Yeah. That's
Who's
more
this guy,
personality.
Anthony what?
Carbonaro. It's like a magician or something. It was a TV show.
I know.
I've been told I look like him. Look him up. He looks like me.
Okay. Yeah, it looks more like you.
Yeah.
This is much closer.
Sexier guy, though, too. So I'd say sexier
He's
than
got better
Paul
hair.
Walker. That's debatable. I wear a hat a lot. I have great hair. I'm up there with Greg Amsinger in terms of hair.
Okay, let's relax.
Does your hair actually stand up? Have you ever gelled your hair? That's a fun question.
No.
I'm gonna say you have what I had when I was younger, where it just sat there.
Oh,
just
dude, I
laid.
had that until I was 29 years old.
Yeah.
Until I got married. Yeah. And then I was like, can I do something else with
Mine
this?
too,
Is there
actually.
anything else I can do?
Just started with Katie. I was like, hey, can you fix this? And she's a pro, and she did.
We took our pictures for the engagement photos, and we got them back, and I was like, Kara, I look like I'm balding. Because I did the buzz cut.
Yeah,
it was a good look. Super easy, right?
It was a good look.
And I was like, Kara, I think this is going to go poorly. We're going to pay God only knows how much money for these pictures. I'm going to look like I'm balding. I've got a full head of hair. I don't have a problem growing it. I just cut it like once every 3 days. Yeah. I am with my hair at that point in time what Alex does with the sheets. Go back in the podcast page if you want to hear the full explanation for what I'm talking about there.
Maybe. I look like Paul Walker. People are sending in pictures. I look just like this guy.
You do not look anything like
there is no resemblance.
Yeah, there is. I just don't have the blonde hair. Black hair. You put black hair on Paul Walker, that's me.
I'm not sure I see this Carbano guy as you.
I could kind of see that one. That one makes a little more sense.
Look, man, if we're talking doppelgangers, I'm good looking. So there's guys out there that look just like me.
All right, so the reason why I bring all of this up is because Alex has a doppelganger in the way that he acts. That was on Jeopardy yesterday.
That's dangerous.
Here's the audio.
Jake Diarruda, originally from Ludlow, Vermont, is a delivery routing assistant. What did you do with your winnings? Jake, you had quite a streak.
So I was 23 when my games aired last year, so I did what anybody under the age of 25 would do, and I promptly spent the check on sports gambling and women and alcohol. And by that, of course, I spent $20 on a college football pick'em that went horribly wrong, $20 to take my date and I to the top of the Gillette Stadium Lighthouse, and several 4-packs of hard cider to get through the awful Patriot season that I endured.
That's you.
The way you framed it just didn't sound good. I spent it on gambling, booze, and women. That sounds like a weekend in Vegas. Well, I'm not spending it on women in the way I thought he was spending it on. No, I would spend.
You're going to the Spearmint Rhino.
How much
You're
did he
throwing
win?
some ones in the air.
How much did he win? $60.
You're drinking a vodka with cranberry.
No, not vodka with cranberry. I'm buying. So this is what.
And you're going with 100 different $20 parlays.
Yeah, that's very happening.
You're to spend your day at Circa Sportsbook. Yeah. Then you're going over to the Spearmint Rhino, and you're spending whatever winnings and or losings you lost.
No, the women I spend my money on is my beautiful wife. That's who I spend my money on. That guy. Also, you took a date to the top of Gillette Stadium Lighthouse?
Sounds great.
Is that a thing? Is there a lighthouse on top of Gillette Stadium?
Apparently, man. That's the house that Tom built.
That's just not what I would do with my $60, which guy must be terrible on Jeopardy.
I don't think he actually just won $60, but
well, you can if you're going to go on a run like that on Jeopardy. Yeah. I'm smarter with my finances than what this guy is.
If you won $10,000,
that's nothing. I'd spend it all on gambling.
Yeah, gambling, women.
I'd be on a golf trip, spending it on gambling later that night, and then maybe put a little in my 401k.
Coming up next, no chance. Chris Tanev was dealt yesterday. What can we learn from the deal? We'll talk about it here on 101 ESPN. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. So Chris Tanev was dealt yesterday. Really good defenseman, probably second pair defenseman ideally, Alex, on an expiring contract. And the expectation was, hey, this is just going to be the latest in a long line of defensemen that are in that ilk that go for a first-round pick. And yet that was not what took place. The Calgary Flames are only able to get a second-round pick in return. Now, there is some sweeteners to the deal. If they end up, the Dallas Stars get to the Stanley Cup final, the Calgary Flames would also add an additional third-round pick into this, but that would not pass over until 2026. So it's basically for Chris Tanev and the Calgary Flames to eat 50% of the contract. They got a second-round pick in return. That's a lot less than what I think most were expecting this to be. What can we learn from the return in the first major defenseman deal that we've seen so far at the deadline?
That the deadline might not be for you this season. You might need to make your trades in the offseason. I was blown away by how low that offer or that return was for Christopher Tanev. Like, I understand Tanev is not a top pair defenseman, but he's also a guy who was eating 20 minutes a night for the Calgary Flames, and he was a very good shutdown defenseman. And he went for a second-round pick and a conditional third that's for 2 years from now that might not even go to them, but he's also 75% of his salary was eaten. A third team jumped in, and you didn't get a first-round pick for that? Mark Giordano, when he was 39 years old, got a first-round pick when he was traded. Gavrikov last year, who's 28, but he got a first-round pick. And Christopher Tanev was not a first-round pick. That's wild to me. So if that's the market that this is going to be, and I think Calgary botched that, because if I'm them, I hold on to that piece until the trade deadline when a team doesn't get the defenseman that they want and get desperate to fork up a first-round pick. But if you're Doug and you're thinking of potentially maybe moving a Marco Scandella or seeing what's out there for Kapanen or for Blais, don't even worry about it. You're better off just keeping them because you're not getting anything on this market if that's what the starting rate is.
Yeah, I would also add that the players that the Blues have to offer right now, and I'm not talking about Kyrou and Buchnevich, but the guys that are most likely to be dealt, we're talking about Scandella. You could probably look at somebody like a Perunovic, or if you wanted to, like the Kevin Hayes route, those
Brandon Saad,
lower end players. This shows you that there's almost zero value right now for that type of a market. So if you're gonna trade those players, you know you're not gonna get much in return. Is it just more valuable to just keep those guys here? You know, like for a Scandella, for example, is it better to deal him elsewhere, or like the Blues might have interest in re-signing Scandella on a cheap deal? I'm not going to bring him back on like a multi-year contract again for $3+ million per year, but could I get Marco Scandella to come back on a 1 year, $1 to $2 million deal next year? I think that's at least possible for them.
I mean, I wouldn't rule out moving guys because I do think this roster needs to be changed. And I know Marco Scandella or Kapanen or Blais aren't really going to do anything for you. But, you know, if you could get a 5th or 6th round pick for Marco Scandella, I would deal it more so just because you get the time on ice for guys to figure out who they are going into next season. Like, as much as I think Marco Scandella would be a good re-sign for that 6th or 7th defenseman next year, give Tyler Tucker more ice time. I know we know what he is, but let the Blues figure it out. Scott Perunovic, put Matt Kessel up on this team again. So in certain guys, if somebody's interested, I would trade it. I mean, it doesn't really matter the asset you're getting back. If it's a 5th, 6th, 7th round draft pick, maybe you could use that in the draft to move up a little bit, but it's more about playing time now to let more guys get ice time, like Kapanen, Blais. Keep Alexandrov in the lineup. Figure out who he is rather than keep these guys and keep playing them because you already know what they are for this team.
All right, so you did say before the show today, you have not told us what this is, but you've got a trade that you want to propose to us.
I do.
We're going to play the role of Doug Armstrong in this scenario.
Sure.
We'll tell you how we feel about it, but you are playing the role of another general manager, and you're offering something to us for one of our players.
Yeah.
What is your proposal?
So in this scenario, I'm going to role play as Ken Holland. It's a fun thing to role play. I'm the GM of the Edmonton Oilers, and guess what? Pavel Buchnevich just scored a goal last night. They want another winger to play on that roster to solidify a cup run. So I want Pavel Buchnevich. In St. Louis, what I'm offering you in return is a young defenseman who's in my minor leagues right now, but he was drafted in the 1st round, and he's got potential to be a top 4 defenseman, Philip Broberg. But I'm also sweetening this pot because I know you don't want to give up Pavel Buchnevich. He's a top-line player for you. I'm giving you Dylan Holloway. And Dylan Holloway played last night. He was on their fourth line. He's 22 years old, but let me read you the scouting report on this 22-year-old player who's an RFA after this season from Scott Wheeler. Wheeler has, and of course Scott Wheeler of The Athletic, who's the analyst for prospects around the National Hockey League, he has Holloway as the best prospect for the Edmonton Oilers. And this is what he wrote. A fast, powerful, physical forechecking presence who I believe has a third-line floor, but enough skill to push into a complimentary top-six scorer and go-getter. Known as an explosive skater who is normally the most athletic player on the ice, quick twitch hands that keep up with his feet and powerful wrist shot release helps him manufacture offense both off the rush and cutting off the wall to the slot power pass checks and gets to dangerous spots to create chances. He's going to give future lines a different look and provide value and punch in all three zones on both special teams. I still see a 50-something point ceiling in the prime of his career if he can stay healthy, but I see a player who could push for a top six role. I'm going to offer you a guy who could be a top four defenseman, 21-year-old defenseman in Philip Broberg. Dylan Holloway, who is our best prospect. And because we've got to make the money work, you're going to send me Sammy Blais, and I'm going to send you defenseman Brett Kulak, who's on our third pair free agent after this year. How interested are you in this?
So give me the full deal again.
So you will be sending me Pavel Buchnevich, Sammy Blais, and because we got to make the salary cap work, you got to eat 50% of Sammy Blais' salary for the rest of the season. I'm sending you Brett Kulak, who's a third-pair defenseman who's a UFA after this season.
So that's filler.
I'm sending you Philip Broberg, who Philip Broberg right now is playing in our minor league system. He's gotten a cup of coffee up at the NHL level, but he's 6'4", left-handed defenseman, 22 years old this season. He's got 19 points in 29 games for our AHL team and is a +11.
Yeah, people seem to like him. They think he's got a good future.
And I'm sending you Dylan Holloway, who right now is playing at the NHL level. He is on our fourth line, but he's 22 years old. We drafted him in the first round. He is 6'1", 206 pounds, and he's a left winger.
So basically, I'm foregoing the draft pick route because
you're getting 2 first-round draft picks.
This is essentially what the Blues did last year with Zachary Dean, where they said, you know what? We think this is better than us getting a first or second round pick. We're going to get a prospect that's ready to go. He's a year, maybe 2 years away from the NHL level, instead of having to wait for like a Lindstein type of a cat where he's going to be 2, 3, 4 years away from really being a fully formed version of himself.
Right.
Broberg and Holloway could help you next year. They could be ready to go at the NHL level now.
Oh, yeah.
I wish I knew more about the prospects, but based on the status that you read us, the profile that they bring to the table,
yeah,
I don't know that you're going to do a lot better than that.
It's kind of what I was thinking.
My fear is, so we were going to talk about this a little bit in the beginning of the show. I think what the Blues need is a top-line winger. That's what they're missing. And this offseason, it should be the number one goal of the offseason is to find that guy. I don't know who it is. You could go out there to the market, whether it's targeting one of the guys from Toronto, trading for Brady Tkachuk, going out there and getting whoever the next... You shake the trees and see what falls out. Essentially should be what Doug Armstrong is trying to accomplish this offseason. And I don't think this deal gets you closer to that. But what it might do is it might get you a third-line winger. It might get you a second-pairing defenseman. And maybe what you do is trade Jordan Kyrou for assets that you could then flip for that top-line player. So I'm not jumping for joy. I would grade it a B, B-. It's not the ideal return, but I could see how you talk yourself into something like this for sure.
Yeah, the only reason that I think this is the best you're going to get is because you've got 2 guys who are NHL ready. And I don't believe you're going to get anything better than that for Pavel Buchnevich. You might get a first-round pick in a tweener of the AHL and NHL, which is kind of what Philip Broberg is. But we know what Doug is wanting right now. You want young, controllable assets that project higher than what they are. The Dylan Holloway, to me, is the main piece of this trade. The Philip Broberg, hearing Mark Spector talk about him, it sounds like it's a guy that has never worked well with Edmonton. Maybe you get like a Vince Dunner and Jake Wallen where he goes else and he gets an opportunity to actually play without any pressure. Maybe. But it's not working out in Edmonton. The big part of this is Dylan Holloway. And you're right. It might be a third-line player. But as Scott Wheeler put it, that's the floor of this guy. The floor isn't an AHLer. The floor isn't a fourth-liner. The floor is a third-line player for you. But I'm going after ceiling right now if I'm Doug Armstrong. And this is kind of like what we've talked so much about with Mo and trades of trading for young pitchers. You got to identify the right talent. Because if the ceiling is a top 6 player, who we talked about, guy who can retrieve pucks, guy who's fast, guy who's big. I want a 6'2" guy who's 260 pounds, who, as Scott Wheeler put it, goes after pucks. I'm not sure you're going to get anything better than that just for Pavel Buchnevich. I know you won't get anything better for that if you wait until the offseason.
So it goes back to our conversation we had the other day. Your top line right now for the future, if we're just doing the skeleton depth chart, you're trying to fill in pieces, right? Thomas is definitely up there, but I don't know who the wingers are. I don't have any right
That's
now.
That's a big question mark on both sides.
Neighbors, Dvorsky, Snuggerud is what you're kind of hoping could be your second line moving forward. Maybe this guy could be one of those players that could be interchangeable with Neighbors in that middle 6. Shin, Bolduc, those could be the other 2 players that are in your middle 6. Now I've got that filled out. And what I'm missing is the top line wingers. And I could figure that out with Kyrou. Maybe Kyrou becomes that guy. Maybe it's something that you get for assets for Kyrou, and then you flip those for the player that ultimately becomes that piece. When you look at the defense, that's not something we've done a lot of because we've been focusing more on the forward side of things. You have one defenseman right now that I feel really good about moving forward, and it's Colton Parayko. Mm-hmm. Other than that, I think Matt Kessel long-term is probably a third-pairing guy. I think that's his
I think
best.
Ceiling's second-pair defenseman, but, I mean, you're borderline second-pair defenseman.
You're likely looking at a third-pairing defenseman there. Maybe somebody else becomes that. You could live with one of Justin Falk or Torrey Krug probably as a second-pairing guy, but that's it. So you're going to need somebody else to fit in that. Maybe that's where this Philip Broberg fits in. Maybe. Where you have now 3 or 4 of your 6 defensemen on whatever the next version of the Blues is that can be a contender. So I get how you talk yourself into this.
And I think if you were to ask Doug Armstrong, the hope is that this Theo Lindstein that they drafted this past year is somebody who is skyrocketing up the charts in terms of expectations of maybe he's a top player for you. But here's the thing. You're not acquiring one of those defensemen, I believe, for Pavel Buchnevich at the trade deadline because all those guys are going to be traded for bigger deals. If you want to acquire them, you're going to have to pay the money in free agency if Noah Hannafin doesn't re-sign where he goes, or you're going to have to wait until somebody becomes a free agent or draft this player, which you might be able to draft in this year's draft depending on where you select.
It's a really interesting potential trade for the Blues. Like Alex said, Buchnevich and Blais going over to Edmonton, Brett Kulak making the money work, Broberg and Holloway. It's not something that's been rumored out there. I want to make that very
this
clear.
Is just
this
me.
Is pure speculation. It's just, hey, what would it look like? What could the return potentially be in a deal if the Blues decided to trade Pavel Buchnevich? That is one route they could go if they wanted to target prospects over picks and NHL players.
Stay tuned. I'll have one tomorrow for you.
He's Alex Ferrario. That's Tanner Hendrickson, and I'm Brandon Kiley. Coming up next, it's T-Bone's favorite time of the week. It is Believe It or Not here on 101 ESPN. Sex line for Believe It or Not. You give us a scenario, we will tell you if we are believing it or not here on a 101 ESPN. Guys, believe it or not, when we look back at the Blake Baker defenses at Missouri, we will say, you know what, that was actually a product of the players, not Blake Baker, and they might end up being better with their new defensive coordinator.
Okay, that was funny, man. Come on now.
Not
believe in this one. We know
Can I give you the case?
No.
No.
So Darius Robinson, defensive end / defensive tackle, hybrid defensive lineman, he's now being projected to go in the first round of this year's draft. Ennis Rakestraw, cornerback for Mizzou, he's now being projected to go in the first round of this year's draft. You had Tyrone Hopper, who was a really good player for you, played all over the place. You had Chris Abrams-Strain, expected to go at some point, top 150 picks in this year's NFL draft. Guys, I'm starting to wonder if maybe, hey, you had an all-everything level defensive lineman, 2 stud corners, and you had a coach that was willing to blitz all the time. I don't know. Maybe it was the players, not the coach. And when you look at what they're going to get out of Corey Batoon this year as their defensive coordinator, as long as they got the players, they're going to be A-okay.
Didn't they have those players?
Worried they don't have the players. I'm really worried.
Didn't they have those players prior to Baker?
No.
No?
No.
Because a couple of them came in the transfer portal, right?
Well, those guys were all there, but I mean, they were freshmen.
The talent's there, though, as freshmen. You'd think that it doesn't matter about the defensive coordinator.
As Major League Baseball says, let the kids play.
Yeah,
I think we might look back on it, and for as frustrating as it was that Blake Baker left, I do think there's a very real chance the defense looks incredibly similar this year to what it was last year. And if there's a drop-off, I think it will be more due to the fact that they no longer have 2 first-round picks playing on their defense than it was anything else. T-Bone, you saw this last year. Your defense took a massive step back. I don't think it was because of the defensive coordinator change. I think it's because you lost talent. You had a all-pro level corner that you had their top 10 pick. When he leaves, yeah, you're going to lose a lot. When Sidney Jones leaves, yeah, you're going to be losing a lot at the back end. I think the secondary fell off, and that's what happened in Illinois. I think the same thing could happen to Mizzou, but it will be more because of the players, not the defense.
You didn't have to bring them into this.
It felt good, though. Guys, believe it or not, if Doug Armstrong doesn't make any significant changes before next season, the Blues are in the exact same spot as they've been the last 2 years.
Believe it.
Believe it.
Yeah. I think the difference to me will be the middle 6. I think by the start of next season, my hope is you see more of Bolduc. You see more of Dean. You see potentially Snuggerud. Maybe by the end of next year, Dvorsky's ready to go. Like, these are guys that I'm hoping you see a lot more playing time for. So Kapanen, get out of here. Blay, get out of here. We don't have to worry next year about Verona. Those are the kinds of things that I think change.
But does that matter if your top line is the same one?
We're going to have the same frustrations with the top line. But the middle 6, I think, has been a big story that we don't talk about very much this year, because somebody asked me the other day on Twitter, why don't you guys talk more about what's going on with Kevin Hayes and Braden Shin? And the truth is, I don't care. Like, that's not where the focus for me is long term. My focus is on the guys that are going to be here. I do think Dvorsky and Snuggerud and Bolduc and Dean, like, these guys are supposed to be here. So when they get here, we'll talk about it. But right now, you got a lot of filler.
It's funny, too, we talk middle 6, and, like, I mean, Brandon Todd's having a same season he does every single year. Jake Neighbors is having a breakout season. The guys that have underperformed are the guys that we should have really never put expectations on in terms of Kapanen, Verana, and Blay to live up what those expectations were.
Yeah, I would believe this as well. They feel like a team that's kind of stuck in the middle. And when you're stuck in the middle, it's the worst case possible. You either need to be a team that's like got a top 10 pick constantly, or a team that is competing. And right now they're kind of stuck in the middle. And it's like, I don't know. I think they're in a good spot because they have a bunch of prospects that you guys just brought up. Because when you don't have a great prospect pool and you keep kind of running it back with veterans, that's when you get into some real dangerous territory. I think the Blues are in a good spot, but I do believe that they are kind of stuck in the middle.
T-Bone?
Guys, believe it or not, we will see over 1.5 trades by the St. Louis Blues at this year's deadline.
Under. So I'm going to say not believe it.
I think they make one trade. They'll make one trade. It'll be like Marco Scandella, and they get a 6th-round pick in return for him.
Now, if you said over-under, they make 1.5 trades at the offseason, I would say over and believe it. I think you're going to see them actually making significant trades this offseason. Because here's the other thing. And
they tried to last offseason, They tried to make some significant deals, and it probably would have worked out.
And that's what I was going to mention.
Move got in the way.
I know.
I mean, no trade.
Yeah, no trade. Come on now. It's not a no movement. We don't hand those out in St. Louis. JR put this in his piece that just dropped on The Athletic, talking about, like, hey, I mean, who knows if these guys are going to be willing to move their or waive their no trade clauses. I think if you're Torrey Krug and Justin Falk, as much as you don't want to waive them, how many more years of opportunities do you have to potentially chase the Stanley Cup? And I don't know if even a team would be willing to take on those contracts. But, I mean, if you're Torrey Krug, and I'm not saying he made the right or wrong decision, but if you're him, you're looking at Philadelphia right now saying they're going for a Stanley Cup right now. So that's the other factor into this. At some point, those guys might look at this and say, I'm not getting any younger, and if I want another shot at a cup, I'm going to have to go somewhere else.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line from the 573. Guys, believe it or not, the Oakland A's will be a contending team this year, just to stick it to everybody.
What the hell? What do they think you guys are, the Vegas Golden Knights?
I want what that texture's been drinking at lunch, because there's no way that's happening. Not going to believe it.
I don't even think players in the Athletics want to prove people wrong. I think they're like, yeah, we're done. Just get us to Vegas.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. But guys, believe it or not, the Cardinals win at least 90 games this season.
Not. I'd say somewhere between 85 and 87.
That feels right.
Yeah, I'm not going to believe it either. Their pitching's too flawed, I think. I don't think they can get to 90 with this pitching staff, so I'm not going to believe it. I think what Alex said, 85 to 87, 88 is about what I would say they're at.
Guys, believe it or not, when Jimmy Snuggerud gets back, he will be on the top line for the Blues by the end of the season.
Not believe it, because they're not going to. They've made it very clear they're not breaking up Kyrou Thomas and Buchnevich for the rest of this season. If you're not breaking them up after the Detroit game, you're never breaking them up. I think they've maybe played 2 games, not on the same line since Bannister has taken over, so it's pretty clear what they're trying to do. I do believe Jimmy Snuggerud joins this team. He plays with Jake Neighbors and Braden Shen. And then they put Zach Bolduc down with Kevin Hayes, who he's played with a little bit here. You want Jimmy Snuggerud just like you wanted Zach Bolduc when he got into the game, playing with a veteran presence who's good on both sides of the puck. That's where Snuggerud would play.
I'll believe it. I think when he gets here, I don't think Booch is here, because I would have taken the over on my believe it or not scenario. I think they're trading Booch at the deadline. I think somebody's going to get aggressive and overpay for him, and I think Army's going to pull the trigger because he wants to free up a top line spot for Snuggerud, because he's not going to learn. You're not going to see the peak of Jimmy Snuggerud at his NHL capabilities when he gets here. But you know what? You can season him in whatever it is, 20-plus games that don't really matter to the St. Louis Blues. Why not bring him in, put him on a top line with Robert Thomas, and see how it looks?
I'm starting to get skeptical Jimmy Snuggerud joins this team. I'm starting to wonder if Doug looks at him and say, look, we're not even going to sign you to an entry-level contract this year, because by that time we're out of it. We'd much rather you focus on your off-season and prepare for next season. Maybe sign him to a amateur tryout to play a few games with Springfield if they're pushing for a playoffs. I'm starting to really second-guess Jimmy Snuggerud joins this team at the end of the season.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for believe it or not. I think by the end of the year you see Jake Neighbors on the top line, but I do not think that Jimmy Snuggerud will be.
I think you might get to see a little bit of Zach Bolduc on the top line by the end of the season if he keeps playing this way.
I like it.
In 15 minutes, we're getting into the BK and Ferrario Rewind. It'll be another conversation on the St. Louis Cardinals with Kyle Gibson, who settled in earlier today. So we'll get into that coming up here in just a little bit. But coming up next, nobody seems to be looking out for the betterment of college football. What does that mean for the future of the college football playoff? Well, we'll tell you next here on 101 ESPN.
Tara Hendrickson here with a Sports Center update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. The Blues fell to the Edmonton Oilers last night 3-2 in overtime, and they'll be back in action on Saturday when they host the Minnesota Wild. We'll have bringing coverage starting at 4 o'clock with Alex Ferrario and Joey Vitale. Then Joey will join Chris Gerber for Puck Drop at 5. And the Cardinals currently in spring training action, as today was Kyle Gibson's debut. They are in the bottom of the 7th against the Washington Nationals, trailing 3-0. This Sports Update was brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, an independent American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer.
Nobody's looking out for the betterment of college football. They're all looking out for the money, the dollar bills, and that is what is ruling the day in the sport of college football, really in sports in general. And what the latest news is on college football is that the college football playoff, that 12-team playoff that we all got excited about, it's pretty much going to be a one and done. It sounds like college football is moving towards a 14-team playoff for 2026 and beyond. Alex, this 14-team playoff would include 3 automatic bids for the SEC and 3 automatic bids for the Big Ten. So 6 of those 14 teams every single year would be locked in from the 2 biggest, most powerful, and biggest revenue conferences in America. There would also be 2 automatic bids from the Big 12 and the ACC, the other quote-unquote Power 5 conferences that remain at this point. So before we even start the season, 10 of the 14 spots are automatically taken for. There will also be 1 auto bid from a group of 5. Now we're down to 3 at-large spots. So you go into the season, 3 SEC teams are making it, 3 Big 10 teams are making it, 2 Big 12 teams are making it, a group of 5 teams making it, and then 3 something or another are making it.
I'm generally asking this question then. Why do I have any incentive watching the regular season?
That's a good question, sir.
Because
you don't.
if I know that my team is pretty much guaranteed the playoff spot, what are we out here fighting for?
So I will say this. I'm glad they didn't go to 4 guaranteed spots for each of the Big Ten and the SEC. That was the talk previously, was that, hey, we're gonna try to get 4 for each. More than half of the playoff will be from the 2 biggest, most prominent conferences in the land. I don't know that they would get that every year. Like, I went through and looked at the top 14 college football rankings at the end of the regular season over the last 5 years. The SEC fell short of it twice. The Big Ten fell short of it in 4 of those 5 seasons. If you include Washington and Oregon, they would have hit that mark of having 4 every single season. But that's where it gets a little wonky because the schedules didn't line up and all that. But the SEC didn't get to 4 in many of these seasons. But they both got to at least 3 teams that would have qualified anyways in each of the last 5 seasons. So the automatic bids wouldn't actually really change anything. It's just going along with what we have seen recently. So while it looks funny to have the 3 automatic qualifiers, and I find it to be completely unnecessary, it probably won't have as big of an impact as what we are initially thinking because those teams would have made it anyways. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So I don't know that it's a huge deal. I'm glad that the other conferences pushed back and said, no, you can't have 4. You can have 3, though. I think the biggest thing that's going to happen from this is that it eliminates the conference championship games because there's no incentive. If I'm one of those conferences, I don't want one of my best teams getting knocked out by playing an extra game that is unnecessary. I want them qualifying for the college football playoff. And that eliminates 1 game that otherwise would have been played in front of this college football playoff. Let me just get those teams in healthier.
And bowl games are irrelevant too now, right?
Well, they were already irrelevant.
Well, understandable, but like at least you had something to look forward to if your team wasn't a top 4 team in college football. Like, they're really irrelevant now. If you're talking
about,
that's
going to be the case with 12. I don't think this changes anything from the 12 versus the 14.
Bowl games have been dead for 10 years now at this point.
The college football playoff in general killed bowl games.
Yeah.
That's when it died. When they went to the college football playoff, it was always going to happen, and I don't mind it. I'm fine with it because the college football playoff is worth it.
God, we'll pretend Mr. didn't win a big bowl game this year.
I liked watching the game.
Drink said don't pat yourself on the back for what you just did.
It changed nothing for our outlook of the program. Like, beating Ohio State in a bowl game without their starting quarterback or Marvin Harrison Jr., like, it was a nice win. I enjoyed watching the game. It didn't change anything, big picture-wise.
Someone brought up a good point on the Air Comfort Service text line. One of those 3 spots is Notre Dame's, correct?
It would be if they get in with an at-large bid.
So then there's really only two spots available.
At-large.
Well, no, they'd have to be an at-large. Like they'd have
They're
to be
an at-large, right? Because they don't have a conference.
Well, no, but they have to be better than like the fifth best team in the or fourth best team in the Big Ten, fifth best team in the Big Ten.
Yeah, it'd be an at-large play.
They've
you
got
don't
a
automatically
shot. They
get
don't
it.
automatically get it, but I mean they would
okay,
probably
but like
get
you would assume
If
they're
they're
going to
a
get
top
it.
14 team, they would probably get it.
Yeah, you would assume. So then you're just talking about two other teams with that. But yeah, I understand. So they're still fighting for that one with all of the other teams in that
I
conversation.
just don't understand why you need the conference tie-ins. I
go
get
to two
why
different-
the conferences would fight for it, but there needs to be somebody that is in charge of the sport. This is supposed to be the NCAA's role, but we know they have zero power. They have zero authority. They're not even involved in the college football playoff. They literally have zero authority over this. This is done by the conferences. And so when you get into the room, well, the SEC and the Big Ten, they're swinging a big stick. And it's like, well, we are going to be the ones that have the most power because we bring the money to the table. And so they tried like hell to get 4 automatic qualifiers. Good on the Big 12, good on the ACC for smacking them down and saying, no, you get 3.
No.
And so you got something out of that in terms of the negotiation. But somebody else in the room that's looking out for the betterment of the sport should have said, why do we need to do this? Why, if you're regularly SEC, Big Ten, going to get 3 teams in anyways, there is actually an argument that tying in the other conferences to the AQ is not good for you. There is a chance that you could go into one of these years where it's like 6 SEC teams and 6 Big Ten teams. But that's not possible with the way that they have decided to align this thing because you can't get that many teams in with the automatic qualifiers from the Big 12, the ACC, and 1 in from the group of 5. You can only get 6 total from either of those 2. That's the maximum. There's only going to be maximum 9 SEC plus Big Ten teams in the college football playoff. I just think it's silly. I think the whole tie-ins are unnecessary. I think going to a 14-team playoff the year after we decided that 12 was the number is unnecessary. All of this is being done because of money. It's what was done to get USC and Oregon and all of these teams into the Big Ten previously. It's what got Mizzou into the SEC. It's really frustrating, man, that the sport that I think is fantastic, that is played at such a high level, and this was a great college football season this past year, they just continuously are making changes that make it more and more difficult for fans to continue to latch onto the sport that they grew up with.
How many more years until they say, you know what, I need to go to 16?
Oh, it'll expand again.
I was going to say, it might be a year.
Yeah,
Every year they're going to keep going.
Why would I believe that they're going to stop at 14?
Yeah.
They made it 1 year. 1 year with the 12-team playoff.
And it just depends on how long their contract will be. Because that's the whole reason they're pushing this now is, when they got to get this done by, I think it's the next 6 months or something so they can get a new TV contract. And that's when it'll change again. So if that TV contract's 5 years, 5 years from now, then we'll be talking about a 16-team playoff or hell, an 18-team playoff. And I think what's going to end up happening is, to BK's point, I think right now the problem is you got some schools that have some power, like the ACC still, like Clemson, Florida State, Miami, Florida, and I don't even know if there's one in the Big Ten, but they're helping swat down that notion of what you're saying, because then there's a chance like Clemson, because you talk about the ACC, there's a chance Clemson does not have a good enough schedule to be a top 14 team in the playoff, because the ACC's been watered down for years. What's only going to happen is Clemson, Miami, Florida, Florida State are all going to jump ship and go to the Big Ten or the SEC. At some point, we're going to get just 2 power conferences, and when they hold all the cards with all the big schools, that's when you'll disappear from the automatic qualifiers.
And that's coming. That's
exactly.
Coming. It's a matter of time. You're going to see it. We will get to a place where the regular season for the Big Ten and the SEC is what leads to the playoff. Like you're just going to have like 14 teams from the SEC and the Big Ten that end up getting put into this bracket. The regular season will be 2 divisions. It'll be like 8 teams in one, 8 teams in the other, and the top 3 teams from each division will end up qualifying for this playoff between the SEC and the Big Ten. And it'll be like an SEC Big Ten challenge at the end of the year. That's where we're heading. We can all see it. And it's just a matter of when, not if. It's very frustrating to watch. All right, coming up next, the BK and Ferrario Rewind here on 101 ESPN.
thought you were throwing to it.
Alongside Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. You've got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. If you missed anything from today's show, be sure to check it out at the podcast page. It's been a fun one. 101ESPN.com. The free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. It's all presented by
Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers.
You guys can always check us out as well during, before, or after the show. YouTube.com/101ESPN STL. Those studio cams are powered by the Air Alliance team. But Alex, right now it is time to go down to Jupiter, where it is time to check in with the Cardinals.
Now he's throwing to it.
It's time to fly down to Florida for a spring training report on 101 ESPN.
Presented by E&P Granite, Brooke, Jamie, Curbs, and Bernie Federko's choice for countertops and cabinets.
Let's fly.
We're going down to Jupiter.
Fly like that baseball.
Cardinals aren't flying baseball very much. They have 0 runs today. They have yet to hit a home run.
Their offense is back, baby. 2013.
Remember that? Any concerns? They have now scored 0, 0, 3, 1, 3
to be
in their
fair,
last 5 spring training games.
They did face Patrick Corbin today.
It's a tough one.
To be fair, that is a lefty with great movement on his pitches.
Can we be serious for a second? I have literally 0 concern about this. Yeah. I do not care.
It's the first week of the season.
I do not care at all what the offense looks like in late February.
Mostly because
now, if this is continuing to be the case as we get into late March, yeah, okay, we can have a conversation about it. I still won't care all that much, frankly, but at some point you got to get a little something going. Like somebody hit a home run, just one.
Still haven't done that
yet. Not 10,
huh?
not 12, not 15, just one. But this is not the time for me where I'm going to be concerned about that. You guys agree about that?
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to, I'm not going to get worked up over February spring training.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You should.
No. Spring training doesn't matter, T-Bone. Haven't you learned this for 2
BK
straight
says
years?
That every year, and then something ends up that holds true from spring training.
But Paul DeYoung's not gifted the shortstop position this year, so you don't got to worry about that.
Mason Winters.
Yeah. He just struck out.
Oh,
He has a 1,400 OPS, by the way, so far through spring.
I think it's been carried by that 3-for-3 game, but
it's been a lot of offers these last couple of games.
Right, okay? No, I'm not worried about it at all either. I think when you look at the offense, you always hear that the hitters are typically behind the pitchers. Once you get to about mid-March, that second week of March, that's about the time that the hitters start to catch up with the pitchers. So at that point, if they're still not hitting, then I will start to sound the red alarm bells.
Let's wait until Brandon Crawford gets some at-bats. That's when the offense will pick up.
Marp got to start today. How'd he do?
First baseman.
Yeah.
Marp finished the day 0 for 2 with a strikeout.
Oh.
Looking or swinging?
He's batting .333, though, with an 1,100 OPS so far through the spring.
That was probably a one-gamer thing.
Nolan Arenado's hitting the ball hard right now. Brendan Donovan's hitting the ball hard right now. Lars Nootbaar is hitting the ball hard right now. Jordan Walker has had some unlucky results at times so far. Like it's
been allowed a lot of hard hit balls right now.
Victor Scott went 0 for 2 today.
Put him on the team.
He had a pop out on a bunt attempt, and then he flared one out to shallow left field.
We're still working on bunting.
I'm again 0 concern.
When will you get concerned?
Again, like late February, I'll have a 3 out of 10 in my level of, or excuse me, late March, I'll have a 3 out of 10 on my level of concern. Early April, I'll have the 7 out of 10.
No, BK will be about June and be like, still about a 4, 4.5.
They're trading Nolan Arenado. Guys, it's gonna be fine.
The offense. This is where the offense
ready
succeeds.
To go. He's gonna be your third baseman of the future.
So this is where the offense
Mason
succeeds.
Won with a strikeout.
Nice.
Wasn't pretty.
Not worried about it.
It wasn't pretty. There was
now,
more
the pitching
dirt,
side of things,
more dirt than ball.
The pitching side of things, I'd like to see those guys get going a little bit.
Well, they're working through stuff.
Kyle Gibson threw 41 pitches today in 2 innings, gave up 2 home runs, 3 earned. Kit Rich had a good inning.
I was going to say,
6 pitches.
To be serious with it, at least through spring training, I have been happily pleased with their bullpen guys that we've seen.
I think they have a chance to be a really good bullpen.
Their bullpen.
I'm not even kidding. Like, I think this bullpen, they did it right this offseason, dude. For all the crap that we give Mo, dude, if they were to add Blake Snell, it would be an A+ offseason because the bullpen additions were awesome. They did go out and add depth to the rotation if they add Blake Snell, which I would give them a lot of credit for. They didn't have to sell the farm with any of their position players. Like, they brought everybody back in that regard. I would think you had an A+ offseason, but you have to make that one last step, and they're not doing it. So,
again.
Well, but he doesn't want to be here.
Not true.
No.
I could think of 80 million reasons over 3 years to make him think
It's not about
St.
money
Louis.
in St. Louis.
I will say with the bullpen, one good thing to see today was a Gallegos bounce back. 2 strikeouts in his inning of work because he got rocked in his first outing.
I've liked Kittredge. The short thing that I saw of Middleton looked good. You've got some pieces that'll start in AAA.
Looks really intriguing. A lot of these guys are I don't know what they're going to be, but there's a chance it looks really good. Whereas in the past, a lot of the Cardinals bullpen arms were like, yeah, the ceiling's like he's going to be a 6th inning guy. He's probably going to have a lot of contact against him, and hopefully the defense holds up. They don't have that this year. This year, it's like you don't have to squint. You can see it. They've got power arms coming out of their bullpen the way that you would expect out of like the Yankees system or the Rays, teams like that. And I'll give Mo a lot of credit. That is something that he has not done in the past that he was able and willing to do this offseason.
To be fair, we did have to force ourselves to get excited about Drew Verhagen last year at spring training. He was the best thing out of spring training that we said, this guy's a 6th or 7th inning pitcher for you. Which I guess plays into don't believe what you see in spring training, T-Bone.
He got a great deal in, where'd he go?
KBO?
Japan? KBO?
From the 314. Guys, it's funny. The BK talks about all the good things that happen in the game, but in spring training, nothing matters except for the negative things. I don't care about most things in spring training, guys. I've told T-Bone this for 2 years now. The stuff that matters in spring training is the stuff that will apply to the regular season. Does Jordan Walker look good in the outfield? That will apply to the regular season. Last year, Nolan Gorman looked much better defensively. He looked more mobile at second base, looked more comfortable there. That's something that you could see applying towards the regular season. Are guys working on things like lefty-righty stuff? That stuff can apply. It's something worth monitoring early in the season. Brendan Donovan was hitting the ball way harder during spring training last year. It did apply to the regular season. Watch for stuff like that. Don't look at the batting average or those numbers.
The only thing that matters in spring training is health. The main guys, are they healthy for you?
He's Alex. That's T-Bone. I'm BK. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow at 11 a.m. when we begin our 20 most important Cardinals countdown for the 2024 season. That's coming up tomorrow at 11. The Fast Lane's coming up next right here on 101 ESPN.